Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, Kim.
Yes.
It worked. Sort of. Yeah. All right.
Crazy. Weird. John Hazard.
Sorry about that.
Oh, look at that. Senator Kramer. Timely, Senator Kramer. So welcome, everybody. This is our first public hearing. We have bills on two calendars. The first calendar are those bills in which the body in past years has approved unanimously these bills. And I will just take whatever senators happen to be here. And let's see. Senator Kramer. I am ready. You have Senate Bill 70, it looks like.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of Budget and Tax Committee. Ben Kramer introducing Senate Bill 70. I will be brief. Appreciate the committee's time, and this committee has twice passed the bill out unanimously. Unfortunately, it got caught up in rules last year when it got over to the House time-wise. So just very briefly refresh the committee's memory on this. This is a bill that would provide an income tax subtraction modification of up to $5,000 of income for a law enforcement officer if the officer resides in the political subdivision in which the officer is employed and the crime rate in the political subdivision exceeds the state's crime rate. We do this currently for the Maryland Transportation Authority Police, the Maryland National Capital Park Police, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission Police, and our local law enforcement. We don't do this for our Maryland State Police and DNR police. So this would provide parity and equity for those women and men who serve in those police agencies. And I would appreciate the committee's consideration, and I'll cut it off there, Mr. Chair, unless there are any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Thank you very much.
That's it.
We have, Senator Jennings?
I don't think I would have questions, but
You just don't look right being on this committee.
I know.
I'll share that with you. You are totally throwing me off balance at the moment.
I think he looks perfect on this committee.
well, I don't think you've been able to, Ben and my, or Senator Kramer and my exchanges in the Finance Committee that we used to have, get a little heated. But, and I'm sorry, I don't have the bill in front of me. You said state police, DNR police. Does this is focused on local jurisdictions, or is this state?
No, this would afford if you're in state law enforcement, because we've
Okay.
already done it.
So they have to live in Maryland?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, correct.
got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, committee. Enjoy your day.
You too. Anybody other than Senator Hayes? Well, you know, you have the first bill on the next calendar. So, I mean, I would tell you, you're just going to have to come back at 1:30.
That's fine.
It's all right? All right, well, then let's do this one then. 122?
Indeed. All right. This is a bill that you all, good morning, afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of B&T, Senator Antonio Hayes. For the record, thank you all for being here again. This bill was introduced last year, Senate Bill 122. In the Maryland Tax Code 7201, property that is owned by a religious entity may not be taxed if the property is used exclusively for public religious worship, parsonage, covenant, or educational purposes. I read that, and I believe the legislative intent behind this was if there's a religious institution that had property, but they were also using that property for one of these purposes, whether it be religious, parsonage, or educational purposes, that property would be tax exempt. What we've seen throughout Maryland is a lot of these institutions lease the property out to a third party, oftentimes able to profit off of that, but the local and state jurisdiction don't realize the property taxes as it relates to that. And so this bill passed unanimously from the Senate last year with a 46-0 vote, and I would just ask and urge a favorable report for Senate Bill 122.
Senator? No. Questions? Senator Hedeman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm new to the committee, so I'm new to this bill in particular. But I wondered if the church or religious institution is renting to a nonprofit institution. Does that change your view at all?
No, oftentimes when they're renting to a nonprofit, whatever the lease is, and that's why we're saying to a third party, right? If it's an institution that the church is operating, it makes sense. But if they're leasing to another nonprofit, it's usually for the cost of not only the property, but there's some profit that would actually be able to compensate for the, it would be able to compensate the property taxes in that case.
I'm a little confused, because
Okay.
am I correct in thinking that if that nonprofit had its own property, then it would also be exempt from tax?
If it had its own property,
Right.
it may be. But if that nonprofit was leasing from a private entity, they would pay taxes. And so we're saying this should not be different. If they're because they're a nonprofit and they're leasing from a nonprofit, they should be held to the same account that they would if they were leasing from a private business.
Okay. Okay. Is that the case, that if they're leasing they still have
Yes.
to pay taxes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Senator McCray? Oh, sorry. We'll get you. Where's Senator Benson?
Is this a finance reunion here?
Suppose the property, the leaser or the person who's leasing it is not nonprofit.
Right, and so if the person that's leasing it is not a nonprofit, as long as it's a third party, this bill's call for them. And, a lot of our jurisdictions depend heavily on, the property taxes that provide revenue to pay for many of the things that we care about, like schools, police, sanitation, and other municipal services. And so if they were not a nonprofit that was leasing from a religious institution, they would, we would ask in this bill that they would pay the property taxes. Currently, because because the religious institution have that exempt status, that for-profit business is taking advantage and benefiting from not paying taxes.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator McCray?
I guess I just had a isn't that so question for the good senator up there. Previously, when he came in before this bill, he had a couple council people with him, and one of the clear examples was where a religious institution was renting homes from that standpoint, so it was falling out of that purpose, and that was really one of the gist for that bill to be introduced. And just wanted to say, isn't that so?
Yes. Thank you.
Very good. Did you have something? Okay.
Thank you.
Very-
And I'll come back later.
Yeah, I
Whatever
think-
your pleasure, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is we advertised it for 1:30.
I'm good.
So,
All right, thanks.
Senator Kagan, you have a couple bills? 53 and 112.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, colleagues who are either new to the Senate or new to this committee. And certainly, we're all going to be experiencing the excitement of a new budget process. So I wish you all luck and look forward to learning from you all. For the record, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville, and very proud to work with and partner with nonprofits around the state. These are two bills that this committee and the Senate passed unanimously. Unfortunately, none of the three that I did moved in the House. If it's okay, Mr. Chair, do you care about the order? Should we start? Okay. Senate Bill 5.3, nimble. And those of you who've been on this committee have heard about this. for years now. We created a program called NIMBLE. It's an acronym, Nonprofit Interest-Free Micro Bridge Loan. It's for nonprofit organizations that have gotten a grant or contract from government, not their annual gala, not the Smith family always gives me money, next month, not anything like that. Government, federal, state, county, or municipal government, and they haven't gotten the funds yet. This is supposed to be a NIMBLE program, quick application, and they can get up to $25,000 in interest-free grant money. Great idea. Everybody loves it. Two problems. One, it was supposed to be a one-time $1 million revolving loan fund that would be non-lapsing. So it would just stay there and be used and not be retaken at the end of a fiscal year. So that was great. Two is the money was taken by the chairman's predecessor chair, and so rather than $1 million back in 2017, we have been waiting on getting that and making do mostly with $187,500. So a little bit more was put into the fund last year, but we are back again trying to get $1 million, just the up to, just getting the $1 million in the fund, and you will not hear about NIMBLE again. Here's the challenge. The Department of Commerce, and I have to give a shout out to Darla Garrett, the Department of Commerce does a great job administering this. A nonprofit checks in, they fill out the form, she helps them if they don't get all the information right, she processes it quickly, and they get their funds. Yay. So first off, there are a lot of nonprofits that need more than $25,000, and the cap is $25,000. We're not addressing that today unless the committee chooses to, but that's not what I'm asking. The big problem is that most people, most organizations don't even know that this is an option. And the reason is because the marketing campaign that the Department of Commerce created has never been launched because they're fearful of folks waiting in line and not being able to get the quick turnaround of funds. So especially during the pandemic, when everyone was on a lifeline, I think you all know that a lot of our nonprofit organizations kind of live hand to mouth. They use their money for their mission. And when the money that is promised doesn't come through, and sometimes government requires the nonprofit organization to spend the money first. They've got to hire the person, they've got to rent the hall, they've got to print the materials, they've got to do all the stuff that they're being contracted or granted to do. And then they say, great, we've done that, and we had this really successful program, now pay me back. And if it takes months and months and months and months, it's a problem. NIMBLE helps fill that gap. So, oops.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, and it's an exact same position that the Senate passed last year, that we amended it to.
It is a slightly different number because we did get some more money in. As I said, it passed unanimously. There's an amendment, and this was a little bit of a glitch in the drafting. So you all found a much better place to pull the money from than the small minority business-owned, women-owned businesses. And so if we can get the money into the fund from the nonprofit fund, and the amendment does that, then the small minority women-owned business gets repaid automatically. And so that removes any problem with that. I want to flag in the Department of Commerce's testimony that they have made loans that have been funded for a total of $689,760. And again, that is based on $187,500 generally, and just revolving. People get their money, they pay it back, and all this. So there are over 32,000 nonprofits in Maryland. We want them to know about this when government isn't responding quickly enough, and even when the state does better, the counties can be slow as well. And so we think this is important. You've already done it once, and I'm happy to take any questions. The fiscal note talks about this that this would have a meaningful impact on small businesses.
Questions for Senator? Okay, next bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, since I know that they are recorded separately, Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for the nonprofit sector and for the residents of Gaithersburg and Rockville. Senate Bill 112 passed unanimously in this committee and in the Senate, and again, whether it was time ran out or there were questions, this is called prompt payment parity is what we're calling it. Even before, this all passed unanimously, even before we passed and enacted a new law to make it required that procurement contracts be paid quickly. So our businesses get paid within 30 days or else they start accruing interest. So we took care of our businesses. We left our nonprofits completely out to dry. And so some of you may remember that last year there was a nonprofit CEO who came in and told us how she had to get a second mortgage on her personal home, a second mortgage, just to make payroll because government hadn't paid their grant process for months and months and months. So we got the data from the grants office in Maryland that there are about 8,200 grant programs in the state. We're not talking about the same numbers that there are of small businesses. This is a lot lighter lift. There was absolutely no opposition to doing this for small businesses last year or for businesses. No opposition. It passed unanimously in both committees. It passed unanimously in the House and Senate. I think we've got to do the same for our nonprofit sector. Now, I want to acknowledge that there has, first off, that MACO, Maryland
Senator
Association.
King has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that we have to do this bill,
Agreed.
but probably the rest of you have all heard, especially with MSDE at this point, they have promised and promised and promised payments, and people have been waiting and waiting for payments, and they're still not coming through. I think, unfortunately, this bill is absolutely necessary.
Thank you, Senator King. I agree. I do want to flag for you, there are a couple of departments and agencies that said, no, 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 this is going to be hard, this is going to be expensive. So I want to flag, first off, the concept of this is a top priority, restoring government in the Moore Miller administration. They want to fix, they want to fill the vacancies, they want to make this work. And we also have a new comptroller that I've talked to personally multiple times about this bill. She is committed to moving things more quickly. But I think we need to make sure that we are addressing this. So there are two concepts for your consideration. One is, wait, I'm looking for, sorry, hold on. One is that there is an amendment that fixed basically a typo. There was one that says 30 days and one that says 37 days, and they were reversed. So that's just technical. The comptroller was going to submit written testimony saying, yes, we can do this, but she talked about a 5-day buffer period. So if the 30-day period, so if there's an agency that submits an approved invoice, yep, we're good with this, Madam Comptroller, you can now pay this check, right? You can pay this bill. And if day 29 is on a Friday afternoon of a 3-day weekend, I don't think it's reasonable to ask our state employees to hurry up and get it done, or else they'd have to pay interest or something. So I don't think we want that. So a 5-day buffer period is totally fine with me if that's the will of the committee and if that makes her or their jobs easier. The $8,100 grant, 8,100 grant programs is all we're talking about across 23 state agencies. This is not a heavy lift. And again, with more people that are coming through, if it is in the wisdom of this committee to give a 1-year delayed implementation or some implementation for our new comptroller and our new administration, that could be a good idea, but I also think that they can do it now without a heavy lift. So that is up to you. Our preference is for the early adoption so that small businesses and nonprofits both are governed by this new timetable on the same day at the same time, and that's this June.
Okay, thank you, Senator. This is, we dealt with a lot. I mean, we got procurement last year on this committee
Yes.
for the first time, and then we have been trying to deal and chip away at these issues. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And this was one of them we did. Any
One-
questions for the senator? Thank you
Could I
very
just,
much.
one sentence?
Sure.
The fiscal note, super quickly, it assumes late payments, and it's a microscopic fiscal note of $11,000 and $141,000. So it's almost nothing, but that assumes that all payments will be late, which I think is not a thing.
Senator Alfred?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, you mentioned a potential one-year grace period for the new comptroller. I don't know if someone from her office is here or listening, but is that what, I don't know if you can testify or not, but please let the committee know if that's something you are interested in. Thank you.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, colleagues.
Senator Hester? 109.
Good afternoon. Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapet, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Katie Frey-Hester from District 9. Thank you for your consideration this year of Senate Bill 109, which will require the Interagency Commission on School Construction to consider systematic renovations regardless of the cost. The bill is a reintroduction of Senate Bill 40, which passed this committee and the Senate chamber unanimously last year. Just to refresh your memory on the purpose of this bill, as it currently stands, the IAC only considers systemic renovation efforts if the projects are valued above $4 million. And due to this requirement, many high-impact, low-cost projects are disqualified. When we passed the Built to Learn Act of 2020, many of us anticipated funds from the revenue bonds being used would equally cover the cost of new construction as well as renovation. Deferred maintenance in our public schools is just as common in Garrett County as it is in Howard County or on the Eastern Shore. And so this funding is critical to keeping our students in safe, healthy learning environments. However, 2 years ago, when I was thinking about this bill, I spoke first to our county executive in Howard County, and he brought to my attention the fact that several of our projects, including boiler replacements and roofing of our elementary schools, fall below this $4 million figure. I then followed up with County Executive of Baltimore County, who also supported the bill last year, and he confirmed that many of their projects would be disqualified under the IAC's current interpretation. As such, my legislation seeks to clarify the original intent of the Built to Learn Act. I would like to inform the committee that my office is currently working on a sponsor amendment that would alleviate what I think is the major concern that the House had last year when this bill did not come up for a vote. That was that some of these projects under $4 million do not meet the bonding requirement. And so we're hoping to insert some language that disqualifies that projects that met the capital requirements that fell underneath the $4 million was the intent of the bill. For these reasons, I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 109.
Thanks, Senator. Questions for Senator? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Jackson. 3 bills, 83, 94, 105.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. Michael Jackson, District 27, on behalf of Senate Bill 83. Senate Bill 83 was before this body last year, and I believe the body passed it out unanimously, so I won't take much time on it. Obviously, the bill is income tax subtraction modification for military and public safety retirement income. Senate Bill 83 is a fairly straightforward bill, which increases the income tax subtraction modification for military retirement from $15,000 to $20,000. Additionally, it similarly raises the subtraction modification to $20,000 for retired public safety professionals, including retired correctional officers, law enforcement officers, fire rescue, and emergency services personnel. Residents would need to be 55 years of age to claim either modification. As many of you know, we have worked on this bill and those like it in the past, but because of this unique situation, I think this is a modest increase in this taxation, in this income tax modification for services rendered by those who put their lives on the line every day. So legislation would help put us in line with numerous other states. And as of last year, 21 other states exempt military retirement pay from state income taxes, including our neighbors in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And 9 states do not have state income tax altogether. Alaska, Florida, Nevada, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Wyoming, and Washington. I have great confidence that this legislation would help to serve significant incentive for our retiring military and public safety officials to stay in the state of Maryland. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we hope for a favorable report, as we've had in the past, and I'll stand for questions.
Questions from the committee? Senator's correct, and we tried to bundle a bunch of stuff last year.
Yes, we did.
Unfortunately, the House didn't have the same appetite. I've been trying to get all this sort of handled because we keep coming in ticky-tack with all these bills, and I would have liked to have done it all together. Doesn't look like we're going to get there that way, but we'll just keep plowing along. Senator, next bill.
Yes, sir. Senator Michael Jackson, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. Senator Michael Jackson, representing District 27. My second bill, Senate Bill 94, Income Tax Subtraction Modification for Volunteer Fire Rescue and Emergency Medical Services. This bill, currently, we have a tax incentive program in place that we are all aware of. We were all part of getting to this point. This program deduction is $7,000 for the 2023 tax year. This legislation raises the deduction to $10,000 beginning with the 2024 tax year. Again, this is one of the bills we brought forth last year that kind of got caught up in between the two chambers, and we are asking for a favorable report as we move forward. I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, Senator.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. Senator Michael Jackson, District 27, on behalf of Senate Bill 105, Law Enforcement Officers Compensation and Benefits Study. Senate Bill 105 is identical to a bill that we ended up passing in the Senate last year, Senate Bill 115, which we amended down from a more extensive proposal. We passed it over here, but we ran out of time in the House. Senate Bill 105 is a piece of legislation that simply requires the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention. Let me go back to Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services to study the compensation and benefits of law enforcement officers in the state. The bill will require the office to present a study reviewing the differences in a variety of areas, including salaries paid to law enforcement officers of the state of Maryland and local governments, retirement benefits provided to law enforcement in the state of Maryland, other French benefits provided to law enforcement officers in the state of Maryland. Because of the I'll skip that part. The bill is a straightforward and modest effort to help level the salary benefit playing field for law enforcement. We were part of our package last year, Mr. Chairman, as you all know. We did not get to the study last year, and so this proposal is to put that study in front of us. So, Senate Bill, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You do this to Bailey. Senator Bailey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chairman and other distinguished members of the committee. Senator Bailey, District 29, St. Mary's in Calvert County, for the record. Talking to you today about Senate Bill 61. It would give local governments the authority to determine which public safety officers are eligible for local property tax credits in their jurisdiction. It repeals an existing $2,500 limit on the amount of this credit. This credit is granted at the discretion of the county or municipal government. There is no state financial impact. and the impact on local governments is limited to those who choose to implement this credit. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 132 from last year, which passed this committee unanimously, and the Senate 43-0. I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 61, and I would stand for any questions.
Going once, going twice. Thank you. Please, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And other distinguished members of the committee, Senator Bailey, District 29, St. Mary's and Calvert County for the record. Senate Bill 76 would combine provisions of law establishing income tax deductions for police volunteers and those for the volunteer of fire, rescue, and EMS members into a single credit and increase the amount of the combined deduction to $10,000. Under current law, these amounts are currently set at $5,000 for police volunteers and $7,000 for fire, rescue, and EMS volunteers. It's my opinion that all public safety volunteers should be treated equally, and this bill is structured to prevent these two amounts from being different in the future. So if one gets it, they both get it moving forward. Last year, this committee and the full Senate passed Senate Bill 117 to raise the police auxiliaries credit to match that of fire, rescue, and EMS credit. While Senate Bill 76 now combines the two deductions, the intent of this bill is the exact same, and the $10,000 amount matches the bill that passed the Senate last year. I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 76. Thank you for your consideration. Stand for any questions.
Questions from the committee? Okay, thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Senator Hayes is here, good. We're going to do these in the order. Senator Brooks, you're a little farther down the list. We usually call the committees to let you know when you're up. So there might be a little bit of a wait. It's up to you if you want to stay, but there may be a little bit of a wait. You're number 9 and 10 on this list.
Okay, I'll be back.
Okay. Senator Hayes. Welcome back. It's been so long.
Yes, I miss you all already. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Budget and Tax Committee, Senator Antonio Hayes from the 40th District. Thank you all so much for having me this afternoon. This is another bill that you all may be familiar with from last year, Senate Bill 114. I work with in conjunction with one of my local colleagues, who I believe is testifying virtually today in the Baltimore City Council. This bill simply clarify language in the current law that require a county or municipal corporation to publish tax information in the newspaper. This bill would require the taxing authority to clearly state if it intends to maintain the current property tax rate. Previously, the law required wording that led to confusion by constituents, elected officials, and others to believe that their tax rates are being increased. The bill will require language that is more straightforward in an effort to eliminate this confusion for constituents. I urge a favorable report for Senate Bill 114.
So I'm sorry. This doesn't eliminate the constant yield. It just
No,
changes the language.
Right. So, whenever you're preparing for the taxes, you have to publish it in whatever local newspapers in most cases.
Right.
And but the description is specified in law in what had to be included. This just gives the ability for whatever that description is to not be misleading and having constituents to believe that their taxes are going up.
Yeah. Did you have sample language on this?
The language is specified in the actual bill. It is.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as we'll look at that.
Yes, absolutely.
This has been something that's
And this
been kind of burned me for a number of years. I've never liked this. So if we can fix it with this, that'd be great.
yes, and Mr. Chairman, last year, there was an attempt to put something else unrelated to clarify another issue it had, and it kind of confused this bill a little bit for the committee.
Yep.
The bill is introduced is in the form that we originally intended the bill. We were trying, someone else was, had a problem that needed to be fixed and tried to piggyback on our legislation. We are excluding that from this introduction.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Kevin Canale, anybody have questions for the sponsor? Kevin Canale? And if you got, is this your
Yes.
group? Or no?
Oh, MML, they're supportive, so there you go.
Yeah, Justin, are you here? Yeah, come on up.
Good. I don't know if the microphone's on, but I don't think I need it. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members
It
of the
is.
committee.
Yeah, we do need it on.
Thank you.
It's on now. It's on now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kevin Canale here in support of Senate Bill 114. I think the senator did a great job explaining the issue. From our perspective, I think you are well aware about how local governments feel about the constant yield. We certainly want people to be informed about what's going on. But under current law, that advertisement that Senator Hayes spoke to, at the top, it says notice of tax increase. So a lot of people think that the county or municipality is actually raising rates. We think this does a really good job in actually explaining to people what's happening, and it leads to better and more efficient and transparent government. So for those reasons, we'd ask for a favorable report.
Very good. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Justin Fiore. On behalf of the Maryland Municipal League, I'll be an early session me too for you on this one. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Is Director Higgs here?
Yes, sir.
You have info. I don't know if did you want to speak?
Yes, please.
Great. By the way, just for point of reference, as we move forward, you'll notice that we have somebody on the screen here who's going to be testifying virtually. What we're going to do is we're going to take everybody who is here first, and then we'll take everybody who is on the virtual queue afterwards.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Michael Higgs, and I'm the Director of the Department of Assessments and Taxation. First of all, I'd like to thank Senator Hayes and his office for working on this bill with us. The department is actively looking for ways to improve the constant yield notifications, specifically by modifying the requirement that dictates the font size and the mandate of newspaper modifications. However, this bill requires taxing authorities to publish a title that may be confusing to some citizens. When a taxing authority maintains the current rate but exceeds the constant yield rate, this is a tax increase. The bill requires taxing authorities to change the title of the notice from tax increase to tax rate that exceeds the constant yield tax rate. Public notices are meant to keep the public informed. This bill will allow jurisdictions to raise more revenue without using the phrase tax increase. For these reasons, SDAT offers this letter of information and urges reconsideration of 114 in its current form. Thank you.
Questions?
That would have been helpful to know before we got here.
Do you have anybody else from your staff you want to speak? Okay, with that, we'll go to the virtual. Eric Costello, Councilman. Wait just a second, we're, have a little technical difficulty. Yeah, we can hear it coming through, but it's so soft. How about now? Whoa, we don't need that. Do we have OIS?
It's our first test of the session.
Yeah. Senator Hayes, you broke the system. You're lucky I like the bill.
Let's all blame it on SDAT. They're an easy target.
We're used to it.
And feel free to talk amongst yourselves. We're gonna take a couple minutes.
So y'all didn't tell me that y'all was gonna do it. You didn't tell me that you was coming for me. Didn't you suppose it? I'll have a bill drafted on Monday, dismantle and test that.
Oh, please. I'll help you with that one, seriously.
But how was it confusing? And y'all didn't approve it. Tuesday.
Anyone want to talk about their assessment while we're here? Yes. Appeal? Got till February 13th is the appeal deadline, so make sure you file. Probably about between 30 and 40% of first-level appeals receive a reduction in the first level. So if you think you have some comparables that will help shed a little more light on the assessment, make sure you get that appeal filed.
Time. I'd like to introduce somebody if I could. Okay, I have my intern here with us today, and her name is Grace Pickens. There's Grace. Thank you.
So it's been over the last 3 years is the full assessment term that we've been looking at. So these houses haven't been reassessed since the start of COVID. So what you're seeing is all of the COVID-related property increases of the first 2 years of COVID are baked into this assessment for the first time. So even though this past year has seen a decrease in the amount of increase, the properties are still increasing even right now, just much slower rate of increase that we're seeing. But those first 2 years of this reassessment cycle saw very steep increases in a lot of jurisdictions. It also depends on where the area of the county is that we reassess. So each county has basically been split up into like a Neapolitan ice cream, where we're doing 1/3 of the county each year. And it tends to be geographically together. So different parts of the county, you know, when we're doing Wacomico County, for instance, it really makes a big difference if we're doing Salisbury or not. If we're doing Garrett, which we did this past time, it included Deep Creek Lake, which is why they saw 53% increases or something. All the people looking to escape the city and get out into country life during the start of COVID, just property values skyrocketed there. Sure.
The horse farms is an entirely different issue. A lot of agricultural facilities aren't required to get building permits, so we don't know about them. We then will pick up certain properties that we were not aware of as the assessments come out. So if a building was built without a permit, such as that, however,
Yes, legally, just we
Yes.
didn't know about it.
Yes,
So it
yes.
wasn't on the assessment rolls. We
'Cause-
can only assess what we know about.
because some counties are better than others about sharing permit data with us. For example, Prince George's County, they let us know when an improvement's been made over $100,000, but they won't tell us the amount of that permit, which makes it difficult. Sorry?
We use Google Earth. We have 9 counties that have their own deals with a company that does flyovers, so we get oblique aerial imagery from them.
But if you know of any properties that have had that situation, horse barns, any agricultural things, we want to know the addresses so we can look into those cases specifically. Sometimes there have been ideas brought without like specific examples of changes, and that's very difficult for us to deal with these ideas. So if you have any specific addresses, that's always helpful to us to look into for you.
Informational session, part 2.
I think we're going to just move on. Our apologies to the councilman. We're going to assume that your testimony was riveting and that it completely, you support it, I see. You can use the chat function still. Very riveting. I think we'll just keep moving on. The reason I stopped is because obviously we have more people coming later, and was trying to get this remedied before then. Turns out that I think we can get through a couple more bills before we have somebody sign up for another virtual. So hopefully they will have fixed it by then. But so thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Senator. And we are going to move on to Senate Bill 72. Senator Jackson.
72?
Yes.
No, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Michael Jackson on behalf of Senate Bill 72. Senate Bill 72 is a reintroduction of the bill we had last year, Senate Bill 443. It's a very simple bill that establishes a tax credit for landlords who offer pet-friendly rental units. The bill would allow landlords to claim a $200 credit against their state income tax for each of their rental units in which they allow a renter to reside with a companion animal. The credit will be capped at $2,000, 10 units total, and would not be able to be carried over into subsequent years. To claim the credit, landlords would not be permitted to charge non-refundable fees for pets or institute breed or size restrictions. Landlords will be permitted to institute a limit on the number of companion animals or pets that the renter will be allowed to keep in the unit and to charge reasonable refundable pet deposits. Additionally, this legislation would require the comptroller to keep a publicly available list of properties receiving the credit in order to make it easier for renters to find units that would welcome their family pets. The program would sunset after 2 years and need to be reauthorized in 2025. The problem we're trying to address is ensuring that those dealing with housing insecurity do not have to part with their family pets. In the recent analysis, 1.1 million cat and dog owner surrenders, spanning January 2018 through September 2020. Housing issues were one of the most frequently cited reasons why people relinquish their pets to animal shelters. This legislation creates a win-win for both the landlords and the tenants, as it incentivizes and hopefully increases pet-inclusive housing to allow vulnerable families to keep their pets while providing landlords a tax benefit in the process. With this, I request a favorable report, as with last year, and I will turn it over to our panel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Bevan Dangle. I'm the Maryland State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. Thank you for the early attention to this bill and for the opportunity to testify in support of it once again. I do want to draw your attention to the written testimony. This is not just an issue that the animal advocates who are here today are in support of. We have testimony on the record from Healthcare for the Homeless, who is very strongly in support of solutions because they see how the forced or the threat of separation from the family pets drives homelessness. People are sometimes just simply not willing to separate what they see as their family in that way. And it is one of the leading causes of housing insecurity that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. We have, in our testimony, some additional compelling statistics, and you'll hear from the other panelists, so I won't go into all the reasons why housing, the lack of housing that is pet-friendly, is so intricately connected to pet surrenders and housing insecurity, except to say that this is an issue that will only grow in its severity as we continue to see the evictions rates rise. And I know the Baltimore Banner reported just this week that eviction rates are back nearly to pre-pandemic levels. We appreciate the strong interest from this committee in the bill last year. We had a lot of very good conversations with many of you. We understand that the tax credit mechanism is just, for its own reasons, a complicated one to pursue. We do think that making it a sunset is one way to deal with the sort of uncertainty around a tax credit. It is also worth noting that the House sponsor is looking at some task force language to sort of continue to move this issue forward, but in a way that gives us a chance to make sure that the mechanism we're using will be the most effective one. So we're very happy to work with this committee, keep this bill as the senator has introduced as a tax credit, or to bring you that task force language as an alternate way. But the conversation is timely, this conversation is critical, and we look forward to working with you to address this issue before it continues to get worse. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazzoni, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. Hello, it's lovely to be here in person. I love seeing all of your faces. My name is Lisa Radov. I'm the President and Chairman of Maryland Votes for Animals, here in support of SB 72. You have my written testimony. You also will hear more testimony. You've heard testimony about why this is a problem, and as Jennifer Bevan Dangle said, there was an article in the Baltimore Banner saying that evictions and problems with finding rental units is a problem in Maryland and is only increasing since COVID. COVID has exacerbated weaknesses in this system, and often when confronted with housing problems, the solutions that landlords are faced with are ones that we make in terms of penalties and regulations, certainly not the way that we want to handle something like this. This bill, as a pilot program, creates an incentive as opposed to a mandate or a penalty. The hope is that this program would become popular with not only pet owners in search of pet-friendly apartments, but also with the landlords, who will enjoy tax credits and potentially increased revenue as their policies attract the pet-friendly community to rent in their properties. While we do believe that a tax credit would be an efficient and effective approach to this problem, as Jennifer said, we would support moving the bill as a task force if this committee feels that that would be the most effective way to find a solution and engage the opinions of all of the stakeholders. I'd like to thank Senator Jackson for once again introducing this legislation and urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair. My name is Katie Flory. I am the Community Care and Advocacy Director with the Maryland SPCA, and I'm also here representing PAWS, who you have written testimony for. PAWS is the Professional Animal Workers Society, and I'm here today also in support of SB 72. I am also a private landlord, and this is a really exciting bill, not only for me as an animal advocate, but also as for someone who owns and rents out a property. In the SPCA alone, we see about 20% of our surrender calls are because of housing insecurities. Either someone can't find a place to go, it's too expensive, they do not want to give up their animal, but they literally have no choice. Either the animal must come to the shelter or they won't be able to find a place to live. We want to make changes with that. We want to keep people and pets together. And unfortunately, in Maryland, there just is not enough pet-friendly housing. So if we can work together to come up with this tax credit, we feel strongly that not only will it be an amazing tool to keep animals out of shelters, but it'll be a great incentive for those property owners. We also recognize, again, that a tax credit may not be something that the committee finds as favorable, and we would also be amendable to looking at that task force, getting us all to the table and saying, how can we fix this problem? Maryland is an extremely animal-friendly state, so let's show that by giving a favorable report on SB 72 and keep people and animals together. Thank you so very much, and Senator Jackson, thank you for submitting this bill.
Thank you all. Questions for the panel? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
134.
Yes, sir.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
By the way, I think this is posted in this order, right, out there? Just for everyone who may be wondering, who's coming to testify, the order that is posted out there is the order in which we're taking these bills today. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Michael Jackson, Senator for District 27, and today I'm also here in my capacity as Chair of the Senate Veterans Caucus on behalf of Senate Bill 134. This is a reintroduction of a bill we had last year, which was Senate Bill 85. Senate Bill 134 is a very straightforward bill that establishes a property tax credit for disabled veterans equal to their service-connected disability rating. Presently, veterans with 100% service-connected disability ratings can qualify for an exemption, and this legislation simply extends that out to the veterans with lower service-connected disability ratings. For those who do not know, A service-connected disability rating is a percentage assigned by the VA to a veteran's service-connected conditions. The ratings are meant to reflect the severity of the conditions. The higher the rating percentage, the more compensation the veteran receives for the condition. The aim of this legislation is very simple: to provide an added benefit for Maryland veterans who suffer from disabilities related to their service. Presently, in the state of Maryland, 372,500 veterans reside. With 20%, approximately 74,500 veterans have some sort of service-connected disability rating. For the fiscal year 2022, just 13,644 of those disabled veterans were able to take advantage of the tax exemption related to their 100% service-connected disability designation. While this legislation would likely come with a significant upfront fiscal impact, it will be a sign of good faith to show Maryland disabled veterans their importance to the state, and it could prove an added incentive for military retirees to stay in the state of Maryland. Maryland has faced a marked influx of retirees, including military retirees, leaving our state. If enacted, this legislation would be a small way to again reiterate their value to the state. With that, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'd ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 134. Thank you. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Questions for the senator? All right, we have,
I think we have testimony as well.
we do, yeah, we have Kevin Canale coming in favorable with amendment.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kevin Canale here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of the bill with an amendment. Certainly understand the intent of the bill. We're here because of the fiscal note. The fiscal note has a $40 million impact on local governments per annum, so that's quite a significant cost. We'd ask for an amendment to make this bill enabling. We work together well here in many other areas with property tax credits where the state enables counties to enact these credits, and then counties could weigh the costs locally, get input from their residents at the local level, and then make the best decision based on their current situation. So again, understand the intent of the bill, certainly empathetic to Senator Jackson's bill and what he's trying to do here, but the fiscal cost here is just too much, and we'd ask for an amendment to make this enabling. With that amendment, we'd be in support of the bill.
Very good, thank you. Questions? We also have Director Higgs again.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Michael Higgs. I'm Director, Department of Assessments and Taxation. Today, we are offering a letter of intent for SB 134, a bill that would expand criteria for veterans who can receive property tax credits. The Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs reported over 90,000 veterans in Maryland having received VA disability compensation in 2021. Currently, ESTAT records indicate there are 20,333 permanently 100% disabled veterans currently receiving a property tax exemption under the property tax article. ESTAT anticipates that it would need to process over 69,000 additional tax credit applications during the first year of this credit. A large number of applications may need to be reviewed annually, as the percentage of disability can change each year based on physical exams performed by the VA. For these reasons, ESTAT would like the committee to consider the information presented as it deliberates SB 134. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you all very much. Senator West, Senate Bill 65.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there is a witness I have, and he's on Zoom.
Yes,
So-
that's correct. We're going to give it another shot. I don't know if you were here earlier, but
No.
we couldn't get it working earlier.
Ooh, okay. He's quite a ways away, so if we can't get the Zoom, he can't testify. But we have a copy of his testimony, and you should have it at your desks.
Why don't you give it a shot, and we'll see how we go.
Okay, shall I start with my testimony?
Please.
Okay, great. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, it's a great pleasure to appear before this committee this afternoon in order to present Senate Bill 65. I'm sure the members of this committee are aware that Maryland law imposes a recordation tax at the time that deeds and either deeds of trust or mortgages are recorded in the land records. The tax revenues accrue to the local jurisdiction and are in fact an important source of income to the local jurisdiction. The tax is based on the sale price of the land being transferred in the case of deeds, or upon the amount of the loan in the case of mortgages or deeds of trust. Now, there is a very important exemption from the recordation tax accorded to what are called purchase money mortgages or purchase money deeds of trust. These instruments secure loans made to finance the purchase price of real property and are recorded at the same time as the deed transferring the property to its new owner. The exemption thus avoids the double payment of tax at the time that the property changes hands that would occur if the exemption weren't there. So when you record the deed, you're going to pay tax on based on the purchase price of the property, and when you record the accompanying deed of trust or mortgage, you pay tax based on the amount of the loan that was extended, which is secured by the deed of trust or the mortgage. If we didn't have the exemption, at the time the property changes hands, you'd pay one recordation tax on the deed and a second recordation tax on the deed of trust or the mortgage, or double taxation. So that's why we have this exemption in the law. Up until recently, all Maryland real property attorneys understood that in the unusual case that the amount of the loan exceeded the purchase price of the piece of real estate, the mortgage or deed of trust was only a purchase money mortgage or a purchase money deed of trust to the extent of the purchase price, and that any additional loan amount would not be considered a purchase money mortgage or purchase money deed of trust, and therefore would be subject to recordation tax. So let me illustrate with an example. Harbor Place is in receivership right now. Let's assume some developer buys Harbor Place out of receivership and pays $1 million for it, and then borrows $10 million, $1 million of which is going to secure the purchase price, but $9 million will be used to enhance, improve, and revitalize Harbor Place. So the practice has always been that when the deed for Harbor Place is recorded in the land records, there would be recordation tax due on $1 million, the amount of the purchase price. And when the simultaneous deed of trust or mortgage is recorded in the land records, $1 million of that deed of trust or mortgage, which would be exempt from recordation tax as being attributable to the purchase money, and the other $9 million would be subject to recordation tax. As I said, this income is very important to communities. In Baltimore City, it's important to Baltimore City that receive the recordation tax on the additional $9 million of that deed of trust. And in surrounding counties, same idea. A developer with doing something like a Harbor Place renovation would have to pay recordation tax on the higher amount of the mortgage over and above the purchase price at the time that the deed of trust is recorded. So, recently, a resourceful Chicago lawyer carefully read the actual language of the current statute. When you look at the actual language, it says it provides that a purchase money mortgage or deed of trust secures the purchase price, quote, in whole or in part. And so, exploiting an arguable ambiguity in the statute, the Chicago lawyer has argued that because in my example, the deed of trust secures in part the $1 million purchase price of Harbor Place, there would be no recordation tax due at all on the entire deed of trust because in part it secured the purchase price. So the purpose of Senate Bill 65 is to simply clarify the language of the recordation tax statute so that the arguable ambiguity is clarified. It adds 8 words to the statute, stating that a purchase money mortgage or purchase money deed of trust is not subject to recordation tax, quote, to the extent that it secures purchase money. This will clarify that in my example, $1 million of the deed of trust put down at the time that Harbor Place is sold would not be subject to recordation tax, but the remaining $9 million of the deed of trust would be subject to recordation tax. So, fortunately, I have with me Jack Harvey to testify, and he is here on the screen. So I met Jack Harvey. Jack Machen, I'm sorry, Jack. I had two childhood friends, Jack Harvey and Jack Machen. Jack Machen is here today. Jack was a class below me in high school. He and I both acted in student plays. I always got the role of the old curmudgeon, and Jack got the role of the young rake who always got the girl at the end of the show. So Jack went to Princeton and University of Maryland Law School. He was a partner for many years at DLA Piper, and now he runs Baltimore City's real property section in City Hall. Jack, the floor is yours.
Let's hope. No.
Wait a minute, Jack, we need to turn the volume up.
We can try that. Hold on. So here's the thing, we've got so this little moment of test indicates that we have a vendor problem. So the only thing that we have as a possibility now is to have possibly your very soft voice coming across on the computer that will amplify using our mics. So.
Okay. Or Jack could yell.
So why don't you try talking for a minute?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
We can hear.
I can hear him.
We can hear.
I keep moving any.
I'll try it again. Am I coming through?
Yep, we'll all be very quiet in here, and we'll hear you.
Okay. Well, cue me to proceed.
Go ahead.
Your go.
Okay. My name is Jack Machen. I'm a special chief solicitor for Baltimore City, and I apologize for not being there in person, but right now I am in Wyoming, and I appreciate the ability to be able to zoom in. Maryland imposes a recordation tax on mortgages and deeds of trust, and it allows a few examples, including the purchase money mortgage exemption. A person buys property and pays a recordation tax on the deed, and at the same time borrows money to finance the purchase. Without the exemption, the recordation tax would be due on the mortgage. But the legislature has deemed that to be an unfair double tax. So Section 12108I of the tax property article specifically provides an exemption for a purchase money mortgage. But a problem arises when the mortgage in question also secures a construction loan at the same time. The definition of purchase money mortgage in 12108 is perhaps a little too broad. It's a purchase money mortgage if it secures purchase money in whole or in part, and that's the hook. And the example that Senator West gave is one that I've used many times before. You take a purchase for $1 million and a simultaneous construction loan for $10 million, and the borrower argues that based on a little reading of the definition, the entire $11 million is exempt as long as it secures partly a purchase money. I will argue back that the purpose of the exemption is to avoid an unfair double tax on the purchase dollars, not to exempt an otherwise taxable construction loan. To which I get the reply, well, read the statute, that's not what it says. And if you don't like it, take it up with the legislature. So that's why I'm here. This affects every jurisdiction in the state. Senate Bill 65 would clarify and confirm a principle that the Attorney General's office has articulated in opinions going back more than 80 years. The purpose of the exemption is to prevent an unfair double tax on the purchase money, not to exempt a simultaneous construction loan. That's all I got to say. Thank you for your time. I'll take any questions if you have them.
If I could just conclude briefly, this morning I was meeting with a representative of MACO in my office, and she said, what bills do you have that I should be concerned about? And I said, I got one. Let me explain it. And I explained this one. And as I explained that counties all across the state are going to lose significant amounts of recordation tax unless we pass this bill and clarify the statute, her eyes opened wide and she said, oh my goodness. So this bill has legs. It will not just affect Baltimore City, it will affect every county in the state unless we clarify the law.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Corbin.
Question,
Sure.
Senator, and either for yourself or your friend here. The construction loans independent themselves, are they taxable? I don't know, the concern is he brought up that to avoid the whole, the double taxation, but if you had a construction loan independent of itself, is that a taxable
Yes,
thing?
if you own a piece of property and you want to enhance the property, improve the property, and it's been years since you've bought the property, the construction loan, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, the construction loan in that case would be taxable in its entirety because it would not be a purchase money deed of trust.
That's the question. So,
Right.
okay. All right.
Jack, I'm right on that, am I not?
That's correct. I mean,
Okay.
there are other exemptions available. There are IDOTs and loans involving governmental
Sure.
agencies that have exemptions. This wouldn't affect any existing exemption that would apply to a construction loan.
Thank you.
Senator Hedman.
Chairman, I just, sounds like a very important bill and sounds like something we should be doing, but I just wanted to say hi, Jack. Been a long time. Good to see you.
Hello. From Wyoming.
Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Should we go on to my other bill?
We certainly should. 55.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jack. I think you can disconnect.
All right.
Okay, for this bill, Mr. Chairman, I have one witness, Sarah Call, and she's here in person, not from Wyoming.
Great.
So, once again, it's a pleasure to appear before the Senate Budget and Tax Committee this afternoon in order to present Senate Bill 55. Senate Bill 55 deals with a complicated section of the Maryland estate tax law, but the bill itself is quite simple and I hope uncontroversial. Under the law, a person may take a credit on a person's estate tax for the unused applicable exclusion amount of the person's most recent predeceased spouse. So in Maryland, we give a $5 million exemption on estates. So if the spouse dies first, and let's assume it's a man, under his estate tax, only $3 million is needed for the exemption, so the state would not be taxable. The remaining $2 million, between $3 and $5 million, would be available to be claimed by the widow at the time of her death on top of her $5 million exemption. So that's the law in Maryland on estate taxes. The problem addressed by this bill arises due to the language of a section of the code which specifies the timing when which such a credit must be claimed. So up until last July, both the federal claim and Maryland's claim both had to be filed within 2 years after the death of the deceased spouse. Last July, the federal government changed the filing deadline to 5 years after the death of the spouse. Maryland's law, which is embodied in the code, continues to be 2 years. So you have mismatched deadlines to claim this credit. So there are two ways of solving this problem. One would be to change Maryland's code to make it like the federal code 5 years after the death of the spouse. But what we've chosen to do in this bill, and this was brought to me by the Estates and Trusts section of the Maryland State Bar Association, is to simply pass a bill conforming Maryland's deadline with whatever the current federal deadline is. So Maryland's deadline would be identical to the federal deadline. And if in the future the federal deadline were changed from 5 years to 5.5 years, simultaneously, automatically, Maryland's deadline would become 5.5 years. Otherwise, we're going to be from time to time, we'll be out of sync. The feds will change their deadline, and by the time we catch up to it, a year and a half will have passed, and there will be mismatched deadlines. So the purpose of this is very simple, to align Maryland's estate tax law with the federal law and make sure that both deadlines are identical. And with me today to talk about this bill is the chair-elect of the Maryland State Bar Association's Estates and Trusts section, Sarah Call. Sarah is a partner with the Venable Law Firm.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and Senator West. I am, of course, my name, as Senator West indicated, is Sarah Call. I am the chair-elect of the Estate and Trust section of the Maryland State Bar Association, here in support of Senate Bill 55. Now, portability is the concept that he just described, the idea of being able to use an unused exemption. And portability is an important benefit for estates. A lot of our clients would like to leave their estates as sweetheart wills, we call them, to everything to the surviving spouse. Portability allows couples to have those sweetheart wills without worrying about wasting any exemption on the first death. So it's an important benefit that is also easy to miss because there's no estate tax return due on the first death if you have a sweetheart will, because there's no return requirement or tax due. So you have to affirmatively file a return for the purpose of making this election. Because it's easy to miss, and the federal government has this same process for portability, the IRS has extended its deadline twice, from first 9 months to 2 years, and now 2 years to 5 years. Because of the inconsistency, we've already had practitioners asking on our listserv whether Maryland's deadline is 5 years. So we don't want to have any of our Maryland residents miss this important benefit because of the confusion and inconsistency. So for those reasons, the Estate and Trust section urges a favorable report. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Elfreth. Senate Bill 9.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Sarah Elfreth, representing District 30, here to present Senate Bill 9, State Personnel Executive Branch Service Contracts, Policy Certification, and Notification. Mr. Chair, is it appropriate to bring my panel up?
Absolutely.
Respectfully requesting a favorable report of Senate Bill 9, which would provide additional protections to and transparency to our state employees who remain a key pillar of our backbone of our state. Current law dictates that, quote, the policy of the state is to use state employees to perform all state functions in state-operated facilities in preference to contracting with the private sector to perform those functions. So thus, in order to truly provide this preference, though, and prevent any improper outsourcing or privatization, including that exclusive bargaining representatives receive notice before the solicitation of a service contract, meaning that the intent of the law is to provide proper notice to our bargaining units. That's not always happening, and you will hear examples of that from the panel. And we've also read about examples of that in the news, and an example of that, I believe, will be highlighted, occurred in this very building. The bill does three things. It ensures that service contracts both within state-operated facilities and outside state-operated facilities are treated equally. It ensures that the notice to exclusive representatives of the affected employees is actually provided by requiring proof of such notice to the Board of Public Works, so adding in an extra layer of that transparency when that contract, before that contract is approved by the BPW. And three, it requires that certified contracts received by the BPW also be sent to the exclusive representatives of the affected employees. So again, this is about transparency and notification when a function of state government is moving from public employees to the private sector so that our state employees have ample employment. I'll be offering one clarifying amendment here that will ensure that notice is provided to all exclusive representatives, as sometimes there are more than one group of bargaining representatives within a service contract, so to make sure they are all properly notified. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll hand it over to my panel, but respectfully request a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. We want to thank Senator Elfreth for bringing this legislation forward and for the opportunity to testify today. For the record, my name is Denise Gilmore, and I'm a legislative director with AFSCME Council 3. We represent state employees and higher education employees here in Maryland. Senator Elfreth did a great job explaining what the bill does. I want to walk through kind of a real-life case study to explain how this works in practice. As the senator mentioned, currently state law requires for agencies to inform the bargaining representatives 60 days in advance of a potential solicitation for a service contract and give us the opportunity to meet and discuss alternatives. In 2016, the Department of Health proposed privatizing dietary services in, some MDH facilities. In that instance, the total cost savings was, I think, around $950,000 and would have abolished 70 positions. In meeting with the employees, we were able to come up with cost savings that totaled over $900,000 just by making a few small operational changes. We think this ability to meet and look at alternatives is really important. Unfortunately, we don't always get that notice. And so that extra step that SB 9 requires to have DBM certify that they've met the compliance of this is really important. The other thing SB 9 does that's really important is it expands this notice requirement to all state work. This piece of the bill was inspired actually most recently with what we've gone through in the attempt to privatize the skilled nursing and long-term care at Western Maryland Hospital Center. Technically, that work was going to be happening outside of a facility, so they didn't have any of the obligation to give us that notice in advance, so this would correct that. We've got a member who will be speaking on this more, hopefully virtually. I also want to acknowledge one of our security officers who's here. This is also important for them. We know DGS has contracted out, security services, even here in the building. We didn't receive notice on that. All this bill does, again, is it requires, again, in our mind, a small technical fix that they've got to notice us, of all the state work that they want to outsource. So we appreciate that and, hope for a favorable recommendation from everyone. Thank you.
Okay, next.
We also, let's see if we can get him on. We have a member who is testifying virtually from Hagerstown. Oh, he's not in the waiting room. He said he was. Mike Gardner. Okay. Well, we can move on. We've got, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Chris Ryan. I'm an attorney and principal at Conn Smith & Collins. I practice in the areas of labor and procurement law. I'm a former assistant attorney general in the contract litigation unit where I litigated procurement cases for state agencies. To the extent there are any technical questions about the legislation, I'm happy to address them.
Okay. I think that wraps it up for that bill. Okay. Wait, yes. Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to step back to you. You said here in the building that the DGS has employed some private contractors, and you said you guys were not notified?
Yeah, this is often the case. Service contracts get put out for, various functions that state employees are currently, performing. And that 60-day notice that we're supposed to get before the solicitation even goes out doesn't come. And so, by the time, we generally get notice, the member who unfortunately we're having some technical difficulties, the member that we had hoped to testify today was going to give the example of, they found out at the same time that the contract was put online that they were looking to privatize the skilled nursing and brain injury care at Western Maryland Hospital Center. And, by the time a contract is online already, the agency's clearly signaling they're moving forward with this. We think that the intent of, this law all along was to, give the employees an opportunity to come together and figure out some alternatives before we go, jump to, privatizing it. Look, we're not going to be able to stop every service contract is different. We're not, I'm not, pretending to say that every service contract is, we're going to be able to find the savings that equal that. But to at least get the opportunity to meet and discuss on that, we think that's an important thing that employees have the right to do. They're on the front line, and I think our members generally have a very good idea of how they can make the work more efficient if they're given the opportunity to present that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have one person in opposition. Oh, Senator Stalling?
We've talked about this, and the thing is about service contracts, it shows the services, there's 3 different types that explain through current law. And I think some people might be confused about some of the specifics on here. And can we when we talk about, for instance, express exceeds of $100,000 services, includes legals, accounting, medical, consulting. Is there specifically something in that that we need to be concerned about or not?
Technical and different types of.
I don't think so. I mean,
You know?
no.
Because I just want to make sure that knowing those things, I mean, they're legal, accounting, medical, consulting services. It also talks about services, archives, or engineer services. There's nothing that's hidden in here. Just want to say, that's all.
Senator, thank you. I read the opposition testimony, and I do not believe it's a legitimate concern in this bill.
And I
But
don't
thank you
think
for your
there is
question.
either. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to verify, Mike Gardner still isn't in the waiting room. Sorry, all right, well, I see, okay. Well, we are all working on getting better at this, so, thank you, I appreciate it.
So are we. Thank you. We have one person in opposition. I don't know if she's here or not. Deborah Brocato.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Senators. I'm Deborah Brocato with Maryland Right to Life. And on behalf of over 200,000 followers across the state, we do respectfully yet strongly object to SB 9. We object to this change in policy because it will allow public funds to be used to hire non-state personnel to run health departments and other departments. It specifically names physicians to be included for services provided. Without an amendment or statement excluding abortion services and abortion providers, SB 9 could permit the use of taxpayer funds for abortion training, abortion services, and abortion providers. I did hear Senator Elfreth and the panel and what their concerns were and what their goal for this bill was. But the bill is written so broadly that I feel it opens the door for hiring entities such as Planned Parenthood or other abortion providers to become part of the state and run perhaps the health departments or health education in the school. When I look on page 2 and it describes the services, it says services include services provided by attorneys, accountants, physicians, consultants, and other professionals. And then it also says services does not include construction-related services and some other services, where it could easily be added in there that it would also not include entities that provide or promote abortion services or abortion training. So that is our concern. And, when we look at the state, the fact that 85% of OBGYNs in a national survey do not perform abortions on their patients, it shows that abortion is not an essential part of women's health care, and we are concerned that this would be included in the Department of Health. Last year, a Barris poll showed that 54% of Americans, both pro-life and pro-choice, object to taxpayer funding of abortion and abortion services. Well, a more recent poll, the Barris poll for January of this year, shows that that number is now up to 60% who oppose taxpayer funding. So we definitely feel that this bill could open the door for more taxpayer funding of abortion services, and that would go against the will of the people. So we feel that, either an amendment expressly stating that that would be excluded or somehow making a statement that this bill would not be used to further allow Planned Parenthood to receive funding or be hired by the state of Maryland to run health departments or provide health education in the schools would be a better way to make sure that this bill is not used for that purpose. So we would ask for an unfavorable report on this bill.
Thank you. Okay, that ends the testimony on that bill. Next bill up is Senate Bill 24. Senator McCray.
Thank you, colleagues. For the record, my name is Corey McCray, Senator for the 45th Legislative District. And what Senate Bill 24 is kind of somewhat of a repeat, Mr. Chair. We all had a couple discussions in reference to Garvey, so for those that haven't been on the committee, Garvey bonds utilized for transportation projects and being able to leverage the federal dollars going forward. It's only been used in the state of Maryland once, but there have been 20 other plus states that have utilized being able to leverage the Garvey bonds in reference to future projects from the state of Maryland. This has been a discussion by the previous administration for 2 different years. Just wanted to put in a placeholder in case the next administration want to have something to utilize this as a vehicle for funding transportation projects.
Senator Jennings.
Just quick review, Garvey, that's where you're leveraging a future project that the feds are going to approve, but to use the money today.
To utilize basically, you're absolutely right in reference to out years being able to leverage that funding to be
Was
able to
it
put out a certain
the
amount.
Intercounty Connector or the
The ICC was the only project that we
Okay,
used in
under
this
Earl, 'cause
state
we
of
had
Maryland.
discussions in the House. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have one virtual person to testify here, Brian O'Malley.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Yeah, Brian O'Malley. I'm with the Central Maryland Transportation Alliance based in Baltimore. Thank you for having me here today and the chance to testify virtually. Senate Bill 24, as the fiscal note says, would give MDOT additional flexibility to fund its capital program for certain projects. And it lists what it means by certain projects is 6 projects. And that list of 6 projects is a really important one. Those are projects that would make it faster, more reliable, and safer to travel through Maryland's most congested corridors by train or by bus. This supports goals like reducing greenhouse gas emissions. As you probably all know, transportation sector is the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in Maryland and nationally. So that's an important goal to provide opportunities to reduce emissions from the transportation sector. It would also connect people to jobs. These projects would also make Maryland better connected to the Eastern Seaboard, including our political capital in Washington and financial capital in New York, reducing travel times, eliminating bottlenecks at the Susquehanna River Bridge and Baltimore and Potomac Tunnel. In the case, one of the projects is procuring electric buses. That's an important goal, but that's an unfunded mandate that we put on the Maryland Transit Administration. And if not funded, could result in reduced service or other negative impacts. And so including it in this bill is really important, and I'm grateful to Senator McCray for making sure it was in there, because we need to make sure that we follow up that mandate with the funding opportunities to pay for it. The flexibility in the bill will make MDOT more nimble to get those projects built when the opportunity presents itself. And so it's really important to set up MDOT. Funding transportation projects can take generations, and when the opportunity is there, we need to be able to strike. And so this measure gives them the flexibility to be able to act when they see the opportunity. And so we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the witness or the senator? Any more? Senator Corman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator, I think we talked about this last year too, I believe, also with a list of projects and things. And I would just more or less make a comment as far as from the discussion from last year of just always remembering, if we can, as this moves forward potentially, of to echo our previous friend, colleague from District 1, the geographical diversity. All these projects are obviously important throughout the state, but there are some concerns in the rural areas as well. And maybe we continue that conversation, be able to find some things that can kind of accomplish some of those goals as well at the same time.
Definitely welcome that.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move on to your next bill. 41.
Okay, may I bring up my panel?
You sure can.
I appreciate you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate you too.
Nina, were you on this? Okay. Mr. Chair, just for the record, Corey McCray, Senator for the 45th Legislative District. With me, I have the distinguished honor of presenting our Executive Director for Roberta's House, Ms. Annette March, and I also have our Government Relations Director, Nina Themilis, for the City of Baltimore. proud that Ms. March, that the mayor actually put this as one of his agenda items, which was pretty cool. But one of the things that we realized was that Roberta's House is doing some great work in the 45th Legislative District. Mr. Chair, they just built a new facility right there at Cecil and North Avenue. Phenomenal opportunity. Unfortunately, when they were going for the tax assessment, their tax assessment wasn't viewed as what they are, which is a not-for-profit, and they were charged as a for-profit. They did what all institutions in the respective district, they reach out to their legislative leaders, and what happens was that we couldn't correct it at the local level at that moment. We had to come in and get a statutory requirement to be able to get a look back, to be able to address the issue that's in front of us, to make sure that they can spend the dollars on mental health and things of that nature that they're actually helping with versus something that they're not supposed to be. So I'll let them speak, Mr. Chair, but that's all this is a local bill trying to do a corrective action.
Just one property.
Yes.
It's one property, but we don't know if this, happens or things of that nature. So when working with SDAT in the city of Baltimore, our city solicitor's office, getting this look back will be purposeful because we would then be able to deal with it there and not have to come and wait for the General Assembly.
I see. So
Yes, sir.
so it'll apply to other similar
Others.
situations
Exactly.
as
But
you move
this is
forward.
the situation that got
Very
us.
good.
So this is just, thank you, Chairman and committee members. I'm Annette March Greer, President and founder of Roberta's House. As stated, we recently constructed and moved into this new 22,000 square foot facility in January of '21. In April of '22, we received a letter, a tax sale notice relating to the property that advising us that we were delinquent of $147,000, and this really was surprising to us. We immediately filed for a charitable exemption, property exemption, and was approved. However, that approval did not take effect until July of '22. We then, in turn, asked for retroactivity for the charitable exemption, and they said because of the law, they could not make it retroactive. And so, of course, $147,000 puts a great burden, hardship on Roberta's House. All of the services that we provide is free. And we were exactly doing the same programs in '21 that we were doing in '22. The big dispute was that they said they had sent us an assessment of the property as well as tax notices. However, this was all during the time period of COVID. And so there was a dispute as to, we had never received any notices, and this April 20 of '22 was the first letter we had received. And so this SB 41 would not only help us tremendously, but any nonprofit that was approved, and because of the timing, could be exempt for a prior year or whenever this bill would allow it. So thank you, and I hope that you will consider this, this bill.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazone and members of the committee. My name is Nina Themlis. I'm the interim director of the Mayor's Office of Government Relations, and I'm here to testify on behalf of the Baltimore City Administration in support of Senate Bill 41. As Senator McCray described, under current law, certain properties that are exempt from real property taxes, such as nonprofits and religious institutions, can apply for those properties to be tax exempt, but they must apply following their triennial assessment. So once granted, the exemption cannot be applied to previous years, and so should the entity like Roberta's House miss the application deadline, it is responsible for the real estate taxes as if it were not tax exempt. So this legislation would be seeking to address that issue and fix it, and for those reasons, the Baltimore City Administration supports the passage and requests a favorable report on SB 41.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Very good. Director Higgs, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
Very good. Thank you all very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Elworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This sounds like just a horrible set of circumstances that you experienced, and I appreciate that this is a bill specifically for this circumstance, but it's safe to say that this might happen again to others in the future. Is there anything that we should be rethinking while evaluating this problem that we could work to make sure that
another nonprofit does not meet the same fate moving forward.
So it won't, like, it'll deal directly with this one, but that look back will then be there. That way, if anything else ever happened, I don't know if it'll be like the perfect situation of COVID, the mail problems and things of that nature, but if it was, this would be the safeguard for that piece of it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
If you want to come forward, you need to get on the mic.
Jonathan Glazer from the Department of Assessments and Taxation. So the only reason why we didn't submit anything is we thought it was sponsor only, but we appreciate the senator working with us. Essentially, this will not only apply to them, but if other nonprofits in the future have this issue. Right now, SSTAT's hands were tied with the way the law was currently written. So the way that this bill, our understanding of how it would work is that if the Baltimore City told SSTAT to change something, then we can. SSTAT's not involved in the approval process for this retroactive exemption. It is solely with Baltimore City. So once Baltimore City says, hey, SSTAT, we want you to do this, then you can go ahead and do this. Right now, again, our hands are tied, so this just unties our hands. The reason why the department put a letter of information technically in is just we were wondering if we could have like a technical just amendment to further clarify that the department has no determination in this, the department isn't alerting them of our decision, and it can't be appealed with the department because only the city is administering this credit, and we only want the city to be involved. Just tell SSTAT what your decision is. So thanks again to the senator.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's good.
I think
Go ahead.
I think I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Which actually, wait 1 second, kind of
Yes.
begs the question, because it sounds like, generally speaking, everybody's in agreement, this works, and
Yeah.
it will work. What about the rest of the state?
So with this, the department actually asked for this to be a local bill only, simply because we have only found this issue with this one case in Baltimore City with these type of bills. The department wouldn't be able to administer this type of exemption program, so each jurisdiction would have to do it themselves because we don't want to retroactively take away money from those jurisdictions. So if other jurisdictions would want to put in a local bill to do this, that'd be great with us, but I would be hesitant on making it a statewide bill unless the jurisdictions are asking for that authority.
I mean, didn't you say earlier, though, but the way this functions is it only involves you when the jurisdiction, in this case Baltimore City, reaches out to you?
That is correct.
So why would that be different if any other jurisdiction didn't just reach out to you?
That's a good point. I think if it was written in a way that a county department of finance wants to reach out to SSTAT for SSTAT to amend this, we could do that. But again, with bills like this, at least the department has found that sometimes we're trying to solve one constituent case, that there might be more out there, but often statewide bills might have unintended consequences that we're not aware of.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Brooks, welcome back.
Thank you. Chair?
Good to see you.
Okay.
And this is Senate Bill 32.
Yes, Senate Bill 32. Okay, good. I can go now. Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, I am Senator. Senator Ben Brooks, 10th District. Thank you for the opportunity to present SB 32.
Wait a minute, second. Can I ask you something before we get started?
Yes.
Now, is this the first bill you have this session?
Yes, it is.
Okay, then.
Okay.
We'll give you a little slide for that mistake there.
Yeah, sure, okay. No. All right. This bill, the purpose of this bill is to alter the application requirements for residential property tax exemption for a dwelling owned by a disabled veteran or a surviving spouse of that disabled veteran. Currently, under the law, a credit could be issued to that veteran on their primary residence, and to qualify, a disabled veteran or the spouse must provide a discharge certificate, better known as a DD 214, or a certification of disabled veterans' disability, and that is secured from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. This legislation merely expands the type of documentation or qualified documentation allowed under this application process. Now, in lieu of a certification of disability, it expands the eligibility paperwork to include a rating decision. Yeah. Now, this small change does not expand who is eligible for the existing property tax credit, but merely streamlines it. And it allows the rating to be another alternative to the certification. Yeah. So as this committee is aware, I'm a U.S. Army veteran who I served our country in Vietnam, you know, and like many of my comrades, I too had been afflicted by some of the challenges of the hazards of war. The Agent Orange was a defoliant that was used as a strategic method to remove foliage from plants, so that we could better see who we were facing in combat. But some of the complications of that, you know, that defoliant afflicted several veterans, you know. This bill would perhaps make it easier, more advantageous for the veterans to go through the process with a little less, say, challenge, you know, to be able to get the coverage or the need that they need for making the process a little easier, I guess I should say. So that's for that reason I request a favorable report. And I've got two
Thank you.
two panelists here who can answer questions if you have any.
You don't have to touch, no, we don't touch the, we got enough technical problems.
Good afternoon, Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Michael Higgs. I'm the Director of Departments of Assessments and Taxation, and it's great to be back with you today. Thank you, Senator, for your bill. I am happy to announce that the department will now be able to support great bills in our effort to leave no one behind. This is the first of many bills that we will now be able to support under the Moore administration. Today, Senator Brooks has introduced a fantastic piece of legislation that broadens the type of documentation the department can accept in order to grant a property tax credit. Absent this legislation, a certification of the disabled veteran's disability is required. This legislation proposes to also accept a Veterans Affairs resting decision. This legislation allows for additional types of documentation that can be accepted for a disabled veteran or a surviving spouse of a disabled veteran seeking a property tax credit. The department wants to make tax credit applications as easy as possible to complete for all of our customers. Allowing other forms of identification will assist us with this mission. Please note that this legislation does not change who is actually eligible for the credit, just expands the amount of documentation that we can take in to process the application. Thank you very much.
Mark this moment, everyone. 8 years. Any questions? Okay. Nice. Very good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very good. All right. Any real questions? Seeing none. Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Okay.
All right, we're on Senate Bill 49, Senator.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you again, Chair. For the record, again, I am Senator Ben Brooks, representing the 10th Legislative District in Baltimore County. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Senate Bill 49. This is income tax suppression modification on retirement income. The purpose of this bill is to expand the pension exclusion currently available on qualified benefit plans and qualified contribution plans. And the qualified contribution plan would be a 401K, 403B, 457 plans, to rollovers and annuity contribution, which consists entirely of rollover distribution from an employer. Now, currently, Maryland law provides a pension exclusion in the form of a subtraction modification for individuals who reach the age of 65 or who are totally disabled. And under this subtraction modification, a specific amount up to the maximum Social Security amount that you could get for calendar year 2022 would be $34,300, may be exempt from taxes. Okay, and this maximum amount is indexed annually by the Social Security Administration. Under the current law, your traditional IRA or Roth IRA, SEP, Simplified Employee Pensions, and Keogh plans do not qualify. Yeah, this bill offers a solution to perhaps address this unequal treatment of income that self-employed individuals or individuals who are working for a company that does not offer a retirement plan, and they make a contribution to an IRA, that they would still be able to qualify for this. This subtraction modification will provide much-needed tax relief to those taxpayers. Yeah. This exclusion, right now, the only difference between a qualified plan, which would be a plan that is offered by an employer, versus a non-qualified plan, a plan that's created by the individual, is that the one is employer sponsored and the other is individual sponsored. They're subject to the same restrictions, early withdrawal restrictions, penalties, and then withdrawal. They're still considered taxable income, but one is employer sponsored, the other is employee sponsored. Yeah, so I think there is some incongruity here, and we want to make this available to all. Right now, if you were in a qualified plan, say you retired, and you rolled that money over from that into an IRA, none of those characteristics that were associated with that plan at that point will transfer over. So you're sort of picking winners and losers. Yeah. So this bill is to bring some congruity here, and offer some benefits to those individuals who are not who don't have the capabilities to engage in an employer-sponsored plan, or either those who decide to roll over from a employer-sponsored plan into a traditional IRA. So for that reason, I request a favorable report, and I'll address any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Senator. You have a witness? You have a panelman?
Yes, I do. This is Ms. Bresnahan. She will offer some testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Tammy Bresnahan with AARP, and I'm happy to be here before you today. I think this bill's been in a few years, and it was first brought to my attention when I first joined AARP in 2011, where a gentleman's wife had a pension with a bank who abolished the pension and put it in, and not because she wanted that to happen, the company just abolished the pension and put it into an IRA, and then it was not allowed this exclusion. So that's another example as to how you might be able to help retirees. People that are retirees contribute to the Maryland economy, and we also are always looking for ways that people can keep more money that they have really earned, and this bill would do exactly that. So we ask for a favorable report for Senate Bill 49.
Thank you.
All right, any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Ellis, welcome to Budget and Tax. 103.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Should my panel join me at?
Sure.
Right now? Okay.
Sure.
Come on, panel for 103.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman Gazzoni and Vice Chair and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Arthur Ellis, representing District 28, Charles County, in the Senate of Maryland. I'm here today to present Senate Bill 103, which is an income tax credit for rooftop solar. So, this is a very big issue for us. Coming from the E Committee in the last 4 years, we heard a lot about global warming and all these issues affecting not just Maryland and the United States, but the world. And we talk about electrifying buses. We talk about electrifying, homes and commercial businesses, while at the same time, we do not have the renewable energy generation capacity to satisfy all the great plans we have to prevent global warming. So this bill came up, this opportunity came up to do something about it. To be honest, it's a very aggressive bill. The fiscal impact on the state would be over $100 million because the fiscal note said this might be a very popular thing. So I think that would be a good thing, right? Because we have the climate change issues which affect the entire state. We have here in Annapolis the flooding in downtown. In Ellicott City, we have the flooding. We have even in Cheverly in the 50 heavy rains and 50s just flooded. People can't get through there. To southern Maryland, we have encroachment on the eastern shore. We have salt water coming into farmlands. So this climate change issue is affecting Maryland tremendously. We have a tremendous opportunity to do something about it by using the resources we have, our rooftops, to generate electricity, which will, of course, put a lot of money into our homeowners' pockets, but also do our part as a state to mitigate the effects of climate change. We're looking at, currently, the federal government has a 30% credit, and that's very popular, not just for rooftop solar, but for batteries, for quite a few investments in renewable energy and cost savings to consumers. So this bill will bring Maryland close to in line with what the federal government is doing and offer incentives for our citizens to get solar to make it more affordable for them. And as I mentioned earlier, the fiscal note mentioned that it might be a very successful program. Therefore, I really like that. So you have good news, you have bad news. But I believe that the bad news as far as the impact on the state's finances will more than offset with generation of energy, electricity for our homes and our businesses, and to avoid some of the mitigating impact of climate change, which if we, I think that we should have the benefit and the cost avoidance in the fiscal note also. So we talk about the monies we put into mitigation in Maryland, the monies that went to Ellicott City to fix some of the issues they have all around the state, Eastern Shore and elsewhere. If we reduce the effects of climate change, we don't have to spend those monies, which will more than offset the investment that we're making to help homeowners put solar on their roofs. So the credit is for around $15,000 or 25% of the installed cost of the photovoltaic property. And so I just urge you, my colleagues, to carefully consider this, not just the numbers in the fiscal note, but also the benefits of preventing a lot of these catastrophic problems here in Maryland and doing our part to help our country and the world. Therefore, I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 103. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Senator. The panel can begin, however you want to do it.
I'm Jamie DeMarco. I am the Maryland Director at the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. I urge a favorable report on SB 103. I want to thank this committee for passing the Climate Solutions Now Act last session. That legislation set out ambitious goals, and to meet those goals, we are going to need a lot more solar energy. The good news is that solar energy is now the cheapest form of energy available. When people make bids for new generation, the cheapest bids are consistently solar, even solar coupled with batteries to provide reliable 24/7 electricity. However, putting solar on rooftops is more expensive, and the limiting factor on the amount of solar we can now build is no longer cost. That's just incredible. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because of 20 years of policy from this legislative body and other states across the country. So congratulations. Solar is now the cheapest form of new electricity possible. But the limiting factor is not cost, it is space. There's increasing competing pressures on land use, and it's difficult to find siting for large utility scale solar projects. The space we do have is on our rooftops, but it is more expensive to install a whole bunch of solar panels on a lot of different roofs than it is to install that same number of solar panels all in one field at the same time. This bill successfully changes the balance so that rooftop solar is also as affordable as utility scale solar and relieves the pressure on our ag and land use discussions. And we strongly urge a favorable report. There are a lot of benefits. I'll say I have solar panels and batteries at my house. And when we had a summer storm last summer, we lost power for 3 months while my fiance had symptomatic COVID case, and we never lost power in our home. Even though everyone on our block lost power. So there are a lot of benefits to putting this on rooftops, and we urge a favorable report.
Thank you so much to the committee for the opportunity to testify in favor of SB 103, and thank you to Senator Ellis for having me speak on this panel. My name is Rosa Hance. I'm the chair of the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club, and I'm here on behalf of over 70,000 members and supporters statewide. We've submitted written testimony. I'm going to speak briefly on why the tax credit and why now. So as we've been discussing, Maryland just passed our Climate Solutions Now Act. We are leading the nation now in our aggressive and ambitious climate goals. However, the solar energy growth is not matching and is not meeting the 14% carve-out that we set as a legislative body, the target that we set in the 2019 Clean Energy Jobs Act. And it's also, we're not meeting the urgency of the times. Massively expanding rooftop solar is going to be a key pillar for us actually meeting our ambitious goals and our conservation goals. Tax credits are proven to work. We've seen the initial growth in rooftop solar. The adoption rates have really moved up quite a bit since the initial federal income tax credit was begun in 2006. Now we need to make sure that the average Maryland home and the average Maryland homeowner is able to afford rooftop solar panels and carry over the credits too, so that the average owner can expect their tax burden to be lightened for multiple years. So why now? Maryland is in a unique position with a healthy surplus budget and those supplementary funds coming in from the IRA. And most importantly, the clock is ticking on climate change. I was thinking exactly about the storm surges and the flooding and the saltwater intrusion, and there's no need for us to wait until we're underwater for us to make a common sense investment into an energy independent future. I urge a favorable report on SB 103.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Colby Ferguson on behalf of Maryland Farm Bureau, and I want it to be shown that the very first bill that I'm on is with a panel with CCAN and Sierra Club. So we are moving in the right direction in the state of Maryland. So I would like to say that we're here in support of SB 103 and appreciate Senator Ellis bringing this bill forward. Obviously, it has a very ambitious fiscal note and probably one that would be very difficult to pass today, even with a fairly positive cash flow for the state. However, I think there's opportunities and things that we need to think about when we pass the bill to have the 14.5% in-state solar carve-out. That had to come with a very ambitious goal and had to know that there was going to have to be ways to pay that in the future. And one of those ways is to look at rooftop solar. It is the most popular right now. If you look around, the first early adopters is rooftop solar. However, if you look into it and you are a little cash strapped, or maybe you don't have the disposable income to do it, it becomes very, it doesn't pay, it doesn't cash flow for that upfront cost to buy those panels and install. So when you look at the payout, it just, it doesn't work for a lot of families that can't afford to do it. So I think this is a great look, a great start. Probably this isn't the final way the bill would be, but, you know, if you were looking at to limit with what household incomes are, things like that, that might be a way to reduce the fiscal note. But why are we here? Obviously, we want to find all alternatives to putting in solar to meet this goal without taking our prime and productive farmland at the same time. So we see this as a great opportunity, and with that, we support the bill and encourage a favorable vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Bryson Popham, here with my colleague Joan Smith. I'll be delivering our testimony today in favor of the legislation. We are representing an organization called the Maryland Rooftop Solar Coalition, so it's quite appropriate for this bill. And when Senator Ellis approached us about it, we enthusiastically agreed to support it, so we're happy to be here. For those of you who are new to this committee or new to the legislature or both, you should know that we've been regulating energy in the form of electricity in this state for a long time, and we've been regulating renewable energy for the last 20 years. I first got involved in this in 2007. My client at the time was BP, yes, the big oil company. And what did they have? They had a plant, I see Senator King smiling because she knows what I'm going to say. They had a plant that made solar panels. Where was it located? Frederick, Maryland. My, how times have changed. We are now in a situation where I wouldn't say we're the envy of the nation because I can't prove that. But I think that we do make progress regularly. This is an example of the type of progress that you are routinely asked to consider. And a tax credit legislation like this is certainly appropriate to achieve this social policy, which you have endorsed time and time and time again. I must tell you that our organization is going to have a bill that will also promote this policy. It will be in the EEE committee. It's going to take a different approach, but we are more than happy to support Senator Ellis's approach because there's no limit on good ideas. And for that reason, we are happy to lend our support and respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 103.
Thank you. Any questions for the senator or the panel? Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Senator Ellis, you got another one.
You want me to stick around?
Ready to go. Bring up, you got a panel for that?
And, Mr. Chairman, I was supposed to have a virtual witness. Is that possible, technology?
They're not in the waiting room.
No, okay. Okay, great, thank you. What's this here? So good afternoon again, Chair and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, Arthur Ellis, Senator from District 28, Charles County, here to present Senate Bill 130, which is a bill that will authorize a state authority to build, construct a sports and wellness center in my county of Charles. So I thank the committee for including in last year's budget, I believe $1 million for the stadium authority to study this issue and do their work, their technical work. I'm happy to say that they are in the process of doing that job. They have a report from a consultant that go through the initial stage. and they are really active and really cooperating with us in meeting this objective. You know, the Sports and Wellness Center in Charles County is designed to be an all-inclusive center where folks can get their exercise. Unfortunately, health-wise, an African-American community have some of the worst health outcomes of all Marylanders. That's the issue with access to exercise, access to opportunities to really swim and to play basketball, because, as you know, we have long winters here in Maryland, and it's not possible to do a lot of these things outdoors, like get on the track and walk and run. And unfortunately, the one suitable public pool in Charles County at the community college was shut down, has been shut down for the last 3 years for, well, reasons I won't get in here. And so our sports and wellness activities are getting less and less and less as the need grows. As you know, Charles County is one of the fastest growing counties in Maryland. Our population is exploding, and we have so many needs that really need to be addressed now. And I really thank this body and the entire Senate to help me address these needs and to really take care of these things as they are brought forth to you. And so today I have Commissioner Thomasina Coates here. She was here last year on this bill supporting it. And we have, hopefully, eventually by the time we get to him, Commissioner Ralph Patterson will be virtually in the waiting room, and Jones here, Mr. Jones, to basically talk about the stadium and the concept. And since I presented this to the body last time, and most of the members are here, the new members, forgive me, but in the interest of the majority, I'll cut it short and stop talking and turn the panel over to my witnesses. And Commissioner Coates, I think you are up next. And I'll be open for questions at the end, as you will, and ask for your favorable support on Senate Bill 130.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Thomasina Coates. I'm actually here on in my personal capacity, not as the commissioner, because we have not taken a position on this bill yet. So I just want to make sure that be known. SB, but I am very much in favor, personally very much in favor as a citizen. SB 130 would provide a critical infrastructure boost to the sports, learning, and entertainment venue in Southern Maryland. Charles County has the second highest population growth in the state over the last 10 years. We have had an urgent need for this type of venue, and this build-out would actually match our population expansion. This bill would also allow Charles County to expand their sports facility to serve not just the county residents, but the Southern Maryland region. The goal is to have Charles County based multi-use complex that could be used for sports, entertainment, learning, health, and community events. Such facility would be made of both indoor and outdoor facilities to ensure year-round, as you heard Senator Ellis say, year-round use. We spend a lot of indoor time because of our long winters. But lastly, we need this facility. It can be used to be used across all genre ages, your babies, youth, seniors, and all demographics. The funds proposed by SB 130 would provide the infrastructure that Charles County desperately needs. And with that said, I thank you for your time and ask for a favorable report on SB 130. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazzone and distinguished members of the subcommittee. My name is Antonio Jones. I'm actually the Chief Strategy Officer for Delmark Technologies, an information technology firm, MBE, in Baltimore City. But I'm also managing partner for Riverboat on the Potomac, you know, the growing enterprise of gaming and sports wagers. So we're pretty excited about that. I'm here today because I want to support Charles County in this endeavor. And I'll try to take a few minutes to share why I feel this way. I travel through Charles County weekly now en route to Riverboat on the Potomac. And one of the nicest things I've had happen in the last 3 months was the opening of the Harry Nice Bridge. I mean, that's just one example of speeding the progress of development and the travel of folks in and out of the state of Maryland. There are new and major projects outside of the bridge that are taking place that I've gotten to understand a little bit about. The Waldorf Station, the Waldorf redevelopment corridor. And I think the thing that really honed it in for me to support this particular project is 2 or 3 things. The first one is the number of well-educated constituencies, specifically minorities and others with anywhere from a associate's degree all the way up to a master's degree. That number right now is about 38% of the population, which is significant. Coupled with that is the fact that there are major industries that are moving into Charles County, and that's what young folks are looking for. Speaking of young folks, the working and active lifestyle demographic for Charles County right now is 49.5% when you look at the age group of 24 to 59, the sweet spot for folks who are physically active. These folks are seeking walkable, easily accessible sports and wellness facilities and services for their families. Why I support the bill? I received my bachelor's of secondary physical education at Bowie State University, and well, just in closing, I just want to thank you for giving us this time. My granddaughter, who was born on December 7th, is going to love that facility. Thank you.
Any questions? We still don't have the other witnesses, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
time.
All right, we're getting there, guys. 3 more terrific bills, starting with Senator Benson. She's got one too, right?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. My name is Joanne C. Benson. I'm a senator from the 24th Legislative District of Prince George's County. And I'm here to present Senate Bill 116, Property Tax Municipal Corporation Business Personal Property Tax Rate Alterations. And I'm coming to you this afternoon because this bill is an economic development bill. And it is particularly of concern for us because it aims at an area in Prince George's County that is known as a health enterprise zone and a food desert. And the reason why it is a health enterprise zone and a food desert is because there is no grocery store. This area is in a zip code of 20743, a population of 111,000 people. And let me reiterate, there's no grocery store, there's no doctor's office, there's no bank for the people in that zip code, basically. So we're really concerned about it. And this bill is significant for the local monetary development and monetary security of all entrepreneurs. The state of Maryland has 157 municipalities who have as their mission to ensure that their town or their city thrives and survives. Each municipality has the option of imposing a municipal corporation tax on businesses within their jurisdiction. I might want to add that a bill was crafted last year that was going to address the problem that we're talking about today. But because of the way that the bill was written, it was withdrawn because it would have a negative impact on other municipalities, and we felt that that was a tad bit unfair. And so we decided to come back this summer. As a matter of fact, you may want to know that this concern that we have here has been something that we have been talking about and working on for the past, at least the past 4 years. Now, I want to thank the Department of Assessment and Taxations for their help in getting us to recraft this bill in such a way that it will not have a devastating impact on the 157 municipalities. This bill, the purpose of this bill, is to alter the municipal corporation tax rate applicable to businesses, personal property, and certain operating real properties to not be more than a certain amount. And the amount that we're talking about would be no more than 2.5 times the sum of the average municipal corporation property tax for real property in the prospective county. By not capping the cost that the tax rate allows for, we are keeping businesses from settling in specific communities because of the incredible rate. I want to reiterate to you that we are very concerned because what we're talking about, the area that we're talking about, the community that we're talking about, the zip code that we're talking about is right on the border of the District of Columbia. And so it's very important that we pay close attention to capping the cost that tax rate allows for. And if we don't do this, we're keeping businesses from settling in specific communities because of the incredible rate. Additionally, we should consider the strain that Marylanders will experience due to added travel costs and time required to find necessary businesses such as grocery stores, hospitals, fitness centers, fitness facilities, and the list goes on and on. And so I want to appeal to you all this afternoon to carefully consider this piece of legislation and give it a favorable report. Let me also say that in this area, we have a huge population of little senior citizens, and many of them live on fixed income and Social Security. I have an apartment complex that's in this area of about 98 little senior citizens, and the average income for those people living there is less than $20,000 a year. And so they are saying to me, Senator Benson, we at one point in time could walk down the street to the Safeway to get our fresh fruit and vegetables and shop. Safeway moved out of the area. So now they are subjected to having to find someone to take them several miles away from where they live. And they have constantly complained to us about how inconvenient it has been for them and how much it costs. And so I'm going to appeal to you all this afternoon to take careful consideration on and pass Senate Bill 116, that property tax bill. It's very important to us. It's very important to the county. And also, you're going to hear the testimony from the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. But we also have a gentleman who came in today from Florida to talk to us about the urgency of this bill. So I want to thank you all so much for giving this a favorable report. And now I would ask that the, okay.
Thank you. Senator.
Hello, Chairman and Committee. My name is Glenn Norris. I'm a part owner of a Planet Fitness Health Club in the city of Sea Pleasant. We have over 30 Planet Fitness clubs in the state of Maryland. And I've been working on this for 4 years with Senator Benson and others trying to get a favorable tax rate in that municipality. The average rate we pay in that county is 1.25% for a municipality rate. And right now, when we started back in 2018, it was 15%. They just changed it down to 12%. Our average bill for the first 4 years in business is over $100,000 in just the municipal tax, where normally it's around $10,000 to $15,000 the first 3 to 4 years. So it just makes sense to me that we really look at Senate Bill 116 to bring a fair rate and not let a municipality, in my opinion, go a little bit rogue here with what they're charging. And I hope and pray that you will pass Senate Bill 116.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Okay.
Good afternoon. Jonathan Glazer again from the Department of Assessments and Taxation. I'm here on an technical questions only basis. The administration and STAT are not taking a position on this bill. However, it's a little complicated, so I just want to sort of walk everyone through this bill and exactly what the senator is doing. Essentially, of all of the municipal corporations across the state of Maryland, Seat Pleasant is the only municipal corporation that has a tax rate over 2.7%. Their tax rate is currently 12%. So again, most people are from 0 to 2.7. Seat Pleasant is at 12. So Seat Pleasant's business personal property tax rate is 400% higher than the nearest, than the next highest municipalities. In our informational testimony, we submitted a graph that you should be able to see, which I sort of tried to explain it all in visually so you can understand. Now, where did this come from? Came from STAT. STAT made a mistake. So Senate Bill 37 in 2001 was a massive bill that STAT put in, and my belief is that this was not intended to happen. So Senator Benson asked the department to do a couple things. She asked us to develop a cap that will rise over time as property taxes will continue to grow. She says we want to, knock this out once and not keep revisiting this issue. She also says that develop a cap that only forces the city of Seat Pleasant to reduce its tax rate and does not impact any other municipality. So that's sort of where we are now. So I am here for any technical questions that you have about this bill. Again, it doesn't impact any other municipality, and as you can see from the graph that you should have in the informational testimony, I took the top 10% of the state, I took the top 10% of tax rates of the whole state and showed that each municipality has plenty of room to grow, even if they wanted to raise their tax rate a lot, and they still wouldn't be impacted by this. The only jurisdiction that would be impacted by this bill would be Seat Pleasant.
I don't have that in front of me. What's the cap that you've got?
One more time?
What was the cap? I don't have it in front of me.
So part of the thing is that it is not an exact cap. So, and the cap will rise with inflation. So the cap is not more than 2.5 times the sum of two things: the average municipal corporation's real property tax rate for the respective county and the county property tax rate for real property in the respective county. So it takes both of those, adds them, and multiplies them by 2.5 times. So the cap is so high, it's not, it's really high.
So what would it end up be?
PG County would be 4%. Each county would be different.
So the new Seat Pleasant,
That's what I'm, yeah.
I will pull, give me a second, I will
Seat
pull that
Pleasant.
up. But if there's another question while I'm pulling that up. So Seat Pleasant's current rate is 12%, and they must reduce it by 5.1175%. So their new rate is going to be, which will still be the highest, 6.8825%. And again, the next highest is still 2.7. So we're going from near 0 up to 2.7. Now Seat Pleasant would be at 6.88.
You referenced a bill from a couple of years ago. You said you made a mistake. What were you trying to accomplish with that bill?
So I was not here in 2001, but this was basically when the, I believe, we started using full cash value of assessments. Things weren't originally at full cash value, so there was a series of many bills that changed many things at STAT. Essentially, this comes down to two words in the law that is just a technicality. It's a loophole that the Seat Pleasant found, and our AG agreed with Seat Pleasant and said, yes, The way that it was drafted, I can see how they say that. Counties are capped, municipalities are not. So counties have a hard cap, so it's just municipalities that
And they're
don't.
so any of our municipalities could have taken advantage of this loophole.
Yes.
I might want to add, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, that Prince George's County is getting ready to do development along Central Avenue. It's the Blue Line corridor. I'm sure you all have heard about it. And we're talking about $400 million. And we're getting ready to do extensive development and a facelift for Central Avenue. It starts at 495, and it's going to, as a matter of fact, it starts in Largo, and it proceeds down to the district line. And what we're worried about is Planet Fitness is on Central Avenue in the shopping center. We've had several of the businesses to move. We're very concerned that if we're spending this kind of money, we want to be sure, I told you all that we're talking about economic development here. And we want to be sure that companies and grocery stores, doctors' offices, banks, we want to be sure that if they do business in this area, that it's not going to be an assessment that's going to cause them not to want to go. It's a black eye, and it's not good for businesses who want to relocate in this area. This is about our citizens. It's about raising the bar, even for Seat Pleasant and Capitol Heights and District Heights and Suitland and those areas. And so I'm going to ask you all to please consider the passage of Senate Bill 116.
Okay, any other questions for this panel? Senator. Thank you, Senator. We have a couple unfavorables. Justin Fiore. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I hope I can get along with the Maryland Municipal League. We can get along, can't we?
Can absolutely. I think we have a meeting coming up right after this, actually.
Okay, all right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Team Benson. All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Justin Fiore, Government Relations Manager for the Maryland Municipal League. We are here today in opposition to Senate Bill 116. While the chosen formula you just heard about does have real practical issues in some jurisdictions, I'd rather focus my time on the discussion about capping municipal rates in general. Unlike the state and county, municipalities have very few sources of revenue that they can actually control, and even fewer of those levers to balance tax fairness. We can't set income tax rates, we don't have corporate rates, so our ability to differentiate who's getting taxed at the residential level versus the business level looks a little bit different than it does from your seat. But just like states are laboratories of democracy for the nation, municipalities and local governments are laboratories of democracy for the state. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but these are decisions made by democratically elected officials who get a 4-year review every year or every 4 years at the ballot box. So we're simply asking you to leave room for some of these experiments to take place, and for those reasons, we would ask for an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 116.
So do you agree with the calculation that the STAT has come up with?
I agree that it would currently only affect the city of Seat Pleasant. I do not have the confidence that it won't affect other jurisdictions. Montgomery County is an interesting example of this because of the formula. The cap on municipalities right now would be at about 2%, according to my math, which is much lower than the 2.5% that other jurisdictions are at 2.7. So if a jurisdiction wanted to do that, go up to 2.5%, I assume they'd have to raise their real property tax rate first up to a level that would allow that formula to reach 2.5. So they are kind of capped in a way at a lower rate than what counties and the rest of the state would be at. Also logically a little bit odd that, for example, the city of Annapolis personal property tax rate would be capped by the real property tax rate of Eagle Harbor, which is a much smaller municipality that doesn't have nearly the same services or business community. So some logical issues with it as well, in my opinion.
Okay, sounds like we're going to spend some time with pen and paper on this one. Okay, thank you. We have somebody on virtually. The mayor of Seat Pleasant, Mayor Kelly Porter. Mayor Porter, are you there?
Yes. Wait, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay. Hi.
You have to turn, you need, Mayor, you need to turn YouTube off. Or turn it down. Whatever you're watching, you need to turn it down, the volume all the way down.
All right.
Is it going?
He just doesn't have his camera on, that's why he keeps. All right. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, great.
Okay, thank you. I hope it's not an echo, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. And I'm testifying today in opposition to Senate Bill 116. The city of Seat Pleasant is uniquely nestled between two state roads, Central Avenue and Martin Luther King Highway. Each of these roadways, along with Addison Metro, carry traffic, making our service area in the hundreds of thousands, while citizens, we're only a 0.7 square mile radius with only 4,800 residents. The city of Seat Pleasant is a caring community, and we're so concerned about the businesses and residents in the unincorporated areas that have expanded police patrols and services to Central Avenue, extending from 495 all the way down to the Washington, D.C. line. Initially, we only serviced like 1/3 of Central Avenue. Our police patrols have sponsors provided businesses along Central Avenue, additional police protection, and freeing up resources for county and state patrols. Cities like ours, our citizens based in 203, are ranked one of the most economically challenged in the county. And so to provide an optimal level of services, such as trash removal, street, road maintenance, code enforcement, traffic control, utility remediation, it can only be provided through reasonable taxing coming from residents and businesses. The city of Seat Pleasant, along with other towns, we have our own taxing authority, and we should continue to do so in order for our community to thrive and do well. In closing, I'd like to say that because of this bill, it would impede our authority to most of the municipalities. An additional lowering of taxes for businesses that have access to service provisions populations would cripple our local services to citizens that we currently have and cause layoffs and adverse financial impact. We'd have to pass that on to our citizens in usage fees and additional levies. As the mayor of the city of Seat Pleasant, I fully want to oppose Senate Bill 116, because I believe it will create greater harm, and I respectfully express an unfavorable report to this bill.
Mayor, just one question. How do you think you can explain sort of the vast difference between your tax rate and the rest of all the municipalities in the state?
Well, sir, our tax rate has been up in this for a number of reasons. And when we talk about the businesses that have left our city, these businesses, like what the senator mentioned, Safeway, they not only left Seat Pleasant, but they left Safeway closed down many stores across the country. So it wasn't because of our rate, because that rate, our rates have been in that particular category for a number of years. To explain it, it's a matter of what we do and what we have to do in order to maintain our level of services the way that we have over the period of time that we have been doing that. And we've talked about lowering our rates, which we've done, but we wanted to do it in a progressive manner that would not cause our city any duress. So to do it abruptly, to make an abrupt change like that, will cause an adverse to our present services to our citizens.
Thank you. Senator Zucker has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm getting the echo, so hopefully I can answer without getting feedback.
We have you. We're all getting the echo, but on both sides. So, but we're just doing our best. Senator Zucker.
Thank you. I'm echoing the chairman. So I'll try to speak slowly too, because of the echo. But what is the? I heard Senator Benson what she said. What is the median income of the residents of Seat Pleasant? And then in terms of the 12% tax rate, what does that equal in terms of revenue that the city is getting?
To give you an accurate figure of that, sir, I would have to, I want to make sure that I gave it to you clearly, okay, without giving you figures that are false. The median income is somewhere around above 50,000. Okay. But I'd like to give you a more accurate figure. I could get my, make sure that you have that as soon as I can provide those figures to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon.
If you'll recall, on last year, when the first bill was put in, we did have a conference prior to that bill being pulled. And the understanding was that you all, the mayor and the council, the Maryland Municipal League, the senator and the delegates would convene to come up with a way in which we could find an assessment that would be satisfactory for all of us. What I'm wondering is why that meeting has not taken place. You all were supposed to get back to us to talk to us about that. I'm just kind of wondering why we have not had a conversation relative to this. At first, it was 15%, and then it was reduced to 12%. And what I'm trying to figure out at this point in time, listen, this is about economic development. We're trying to raise the bar inside the Beltway for the people who so deserve it. This primarily impacts the businesses that we have been talking to who want to come to that area to do business. We are looking for grocery stores. We're looking for doctor's offices there in that area. And they have said to us, we are willing to come. They've talked with the county executive. They've talked to the county council. We are willing to come, but we are not willing to pay this high assessment. If you heard Planet Fitness talk with us this afternoon, they're talking about leaving.
Yes, ma'am. During that time
Could you please tell me why we have not had this conversation?
We haven't had the conversation we have to look at it from this standpoint, Senator Benson. I just became the mayor, okay, of Seat Pleasant back in August, okay. I have been wanting to have a meeting with the pertinent parties, okay, regarding that at that time. That time period, I was a council member, and I only have one vote, okay, with reference to that particular arrangement as to how we're going to move forward. And when I became the mayor and so forth, I was looking at everything that we had. And I told you during that time period, because I did come down and met at your office. I met with you and I met with the gentleman or the associates that came in from Planet Fitness. During that time period, And I just want to add this note. Planet Fitness, and we've had many meetings with Planet Fitness and so forth in reference to the overall rate that we had. But all through that time period, Planet Fitness has not paid this city a dime through the entire time period that they have been there. And I said that, okay, hoping that if they even felt that there was an issue with reference to the rate, and we gave them adequate information on what they should do in order to come in and have conversations with us, those particular things did not take place. Okay, when folks come in to do business, you come in to do business. It's your due diligence that you should have in moving forward to know exactly what you do when you come in with reference to the rate and how you're going to do business. Okay, that's one thing I'd like to point out first and foremost. During that time period, I said when I was speaking to you is that if we could come to grips, okay, with something that would be equitable, such that the city would not have to take a drastic decrease during that time period, and that it could look upon other resources that we could receive, both from the state and the county, that could help ease whatever else there would be with reference to making a drastic increase as the one that was proposed, then we would be willing to come to the table and talk. Okay. I said that we would work on what we could, and we would go about it in a strategic manner in order to reduce. In which case we did. We did come to a reduction that reduced by 3% in order to maintain the level of services that we had and how we were doing things without having to have any drastic impact on our city and our city services. The reason why we're not having a meeting and so forth, I mean, that is, again, I'm just at a capacity now, and I hadn't had the opportunity to really go into the fullness of this position in order to facilitate a meeting with you. But I don't have a problem with that, and I did make a request to meet with your office. And I've had a few conversations with the delegates and also with lobbyists and so forth that were lobbying firms lobbying for this particular company at that time. So that's what's actually taking place. I just think that when we look at it, I don't feel that it's a necessary thing to decrease rates at this particular to that make it a policy, whereas we can come to terms and grips with how we can go about maneuvering this, and this would not cause the detriment to the municipalities across the state. There's more things, okay, that can be brought to bear with reference to this entire arrangement that in reference to our citizens and the services that we receive.
Okay.
That they receive.
Mayor, thank you. Senator, you know, as what we do on this committee frequently is that we will pull together several of us to work on thorny problems and try to figure out solutions, and we usually do a pretty good job. So we're gonna put a little work group to figure this out.
Okay. Well, just for the record,
Yes.
Just for the record, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Their neighbor is Capitol Heights, and their assessment is 2.5%.
It seems pretty unusual, so we certainly want to look into this. There's no question about it.
Thank you.
And we have.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so we have, matter of fact, I was just talking to council a minute ago. Municipalities get audited on a frequent basis. We're gonna take a look at what's going on. We'll just try to figure out what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate the time, Chair, and I would like, as you indicated, there's more to this than one meets the eye. So that when you go through those deliberations, I'd like to have an opportunity during that time period in order to bring some things to the attention of the committee, such that they might see things maybe not differently, but see things exactly while we've been going about doing things the way we have over a period of time. So I'd like to have that opportunity.
Of course. Of course, we will absolutely include you. One of the things that I like to do with these work groups is that we have them open. We have our members who will be there working on and ask questions, but we also have people who have very differing opinions on both sides, and we let everybody air what they think needs to be said, and we work from there. So, thank you very much for being on today. Thank you, Senator. All right, we're going to move on to the next bill. Senator Augustine. So, Senator, This is the thickest stack of paper I've had in a long time.
I know.
I think the senator, I'm sure, recognizes how this committee feels about this
Yes.
issue.
Yes.
And we know that it's 4 o'clock.
Yep.
And we know there's probably a lot of people who just would like to say,
Yes.
agreed.
Yes.
Okay.
Understood.
All right.
Thank you, Chair Gazzoni. Senator Malcolm Augustine here with Senate Bill 3988 Trust Fund funding. I will first start off by saying that I really am grateful to everyone for their support for 988. There has been pretty universal support for 988, and thank you to everyone. In the interest of time, I'll stay away from the longer comments that I have. What I will say is that big picture, we know we got a behavioral health crisis. Big picture, 988 is a place for people to call and be able to get to behavioral health services quickly and efficiently. Again, big picture, with y'all's help, we made a down payment on it when it launched in July of this year. All that this piece of legislation is saying, we need to fund it in the next year, and that's all that this is. There are folks who are back here who have taken their time. They're here. They want to make their presentation. I'll ask them to be brief and for them to also be very much me too on this. But as I said, I really have been grateful for you all's support. Y'all know we've got a real problem with behavioral health. This is a great opportunity to help Marylanders, and I look forward to you all continuing to support that, and I'm asking for a favorable report on Senate Bill 3.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you've been a great champion on these issues. We appreciate you. I'm going to, I don't know who all is this whole audience here?
There's a lot of them.
You're welcome to come up, however you want to do it.
Yeah,
We'll
so
make it as-
for certain, I would like for Dan Rabbit and Quintana Garnett, Mary Lowell, Tim Jansen, if he's still here. I didn't see Tim. Oh, Tim's right there. And then Aaron Dorian. But again, hopefully they'll be real brief.
We'll hear everybody. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Just,
I know. I'm also sharing that.
yes.
Juanita?
Whoever wants to start.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Dan Rabbit. I'm Policy Director with Behavioral Health System Baltimore. We're a nonprofit that serves as the local behavioral health authority for Baltimore City. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong support of SB 3. I will keep my remarks short as well. I will just say that you have my written testimony. I'll just say I want to comment on where we got the funding figure that we have in the bill. That comes from the best estimate that we're aware of, which was a February 2021 SAMHSA-funded estimate of what the state of Maryland needed to have an adequate 988 lifeline network that could answer the calls that Marylanders, calls or texts or chats that the Marylanders send to 988. That analysis said Maryland would need $10 to $18 million in the first year. We're halfway through the first year. So we felt that the $12 million was squarely in line with that. The original estimate didn't take into account inflation, the dramatic difficulty and the spike in salaries that have occurred in the behavioral health field in Maryland. And so we think that this is a good investment, and that $12 million, if anything, is an underestimate of what the state needs to have a fully adequate network. So thank you so much for your consideration. We urge a favorable report.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Quinita Garrett, and I'm the Director of Call Center and System Coordination with Baltimore Crisis Response. We are one of many 988 centers that staff the line in Maryland. Prior to serving as Director of the Call Center, I served as a call center counselor, where I answered calls and provided confidential mental health services for individuals calling for an array of behavioral health and personal concerns. 988, it can provide a wide range of support. We receive calls to help people going through divorce, depression, loneliness, suicidal thoughts, substance use concerns, bullying, economic worries, parents call who are stressed, people experiencing chronic pain, grief, and loss. That's just to name a few. Counselors aim to help connect people to emotional support and resources that they desperately need. BCRI, along with other Maryland 988 centers, have used funding to recruit needed staff, to add additional trainings, and to provide competitive wages. We've also invested in technology to assist with quality assurance, care, and to better predict call volume to ensure adequate staffing. Funding is always crucial. It helps with follow-up care, and it continues to help us enhance on and improve upon training needs. Many of the Maryland 988 centers are investing in robust workforce management software to better predict staffing patterns, to match call volume surges, and to engage in quality assurance management by using updated technology and monitoring. 988 is free, it's confidential, and our counselors, many who have lived experience, are ready to connect people with the help and support they need. More than half of those calls are resolved at a call center level. The one important factor that I would like to leave is that 988 is immediate. People can just pick up the phone and call at any time and receive support, and sometimes that support can be the deciding moment between someone making an unchangeable life decision. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, are we talking about just funding the call center? Or are we talking about other mental health services?
This bill allocates funding to the 988 Trust Fund, which was set up by law last year. The 988 Trust Fund can be used for 988 call centers or other crisis services, such as mobile crisis teams or crisis stabilization. It's up to BHA, the Behavioral Health Administration, to determine how to allocate those funds. We believe, and I think BHA believes, that the priority of this funding should be call centers first, make sure that that our network is strong before moving on to considering other funding needs.
Okay, the reason I asked that question is because I have a neighbor that went through a crisis just a little while ago in Montgomery County. Went to Suburban Hospital where we thought that we would find services, and they checked her to make sure that she wasn't going to commit suicide. But then they dismissed her and said, we don't have any services for someone like that. And we don't have any hospital in our local area at all that does mental health services.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally support a call center, but if that's not going to get people to the services that they need, I think we're really in a crisis.
Sure. Like Juanita said, the majority of calls are resolved at the call center level. Most people call and get their needs met by the counseling and connections that the call taker can provide. But I would totally agree that we need more mobile crisis teams who can go out in the community and meet with people to make sure that they're safe, and stabilization centers that are below an inpatient hospital level, but where people can go to be safe. We do know the state of Maryland is considering Medicaid funding for stabilization center services. And so that's something we would support as well, that hopefully can help build out that continuum.
Senator, this is a much bigger issue, absolutely, no question. And yep, I think we all do in our communities, and it's a big deal, and we've got a lot of work to do. I'm looking forward to working with the new administration to make that happen. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Lawal. I'm a mental health advocate. I volunteer for NAMI Metro Baltimore as a support group facilitator and an interim voice presenter where I get to share my story. I began having a burning passion for creating awareness surrounding mental health and fighting against stigma when I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. I have been in and out of the mental hospital up until last year when 988 was launched. When I find myself in a crisis situation where I feel hopeless and overwhelmed, but want to stay out of the hospital, I dial 988 and then get connected to a crisis counselor who makes sure I don't have anything on me that can potentially use to harm myself, then assists me in coming up with a crisis plan to help keep me safe till I am able to go to my therapy appointment the next day and avoid hospitalization. 988 has been my go-to for when I can't seem to de-escalate. Even when my head can't process, because It is an easy number for me to keep at the top of my head, even when I can't process anything. This new suicide prevention hotline has been an incredible resource for me and for many others who struggle to keep themselves safe. And I hope that we can pass this bill and it can help many others who struggle daily to stay alive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your story. And I think you can pretty much be assured we're going to pass this bill.
We appreciate that. Good
Yeah, we're going to hold
afternoon.
you to that, Chair.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Tim Jansen. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Community Crisis Services in Hyattsville, Maryland, one of the 988 centers similar to Quinita's. 988 is not actually new. It's actually been around for 25 years. It started as the National Hope Line Network, which was the dream of a survivor of suicide. His wife died by suicide in the hospital. And so it's not a new service. And so it has become a necessary service in the mental health world so that people can access services. It's imperative that individuals have the opportunity to get services at the time of their crisis. Oftentimes, as has been said, about 90% of the time, callers, texters, chatters get resolution to their situation with a connection to services at the end of their call, their text, or their chat. That phone call or that text or that chat may just simply help with a connection to a resource, a caring individual that just listens, or somebody that can provide an appropriate resource to what they need. I would reiterate and underscore everything my colleague Quinita said in terms of how the funds are being spent. I want to conclude sort of my comments with this. 3 years ago, I lost my mother to suicide. My wonderful 76-year-old mother had some significant issues with depression. She didn't believe in mental health services. Mental health services were what other people needed. Even with her son, the social worker, running one of the largest crisis systems in the country and trying to help her, she wouldn't reach out or allow help because she didn't believe it was appropriate. She was afraid of it. She was afraid of the labels. I don't want anyone else's mom or anyone else's loved one to go through that. I want 988 to be as simple as 911 or 411 to reach out to with an amazing service so that they can stay safe. Thank you, and we're very glad to hear you'll be supporting it.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of time, Erin Dorian, Vice President of Policy for the Maryland Hospital Association. We strongly support SB 3 for all of the reasons that you've heard, and our 60-member hospitals and health systems are all in strong support of the legislation. So I will leave it at that.
Thank you.
Here to answer any questions.
Sure. And whoever else wants to come up, certainly feel free to come up.
Favorable?
Uh-huh. Sure, absolutely. I don't think anybody's here who's unfavorable. Oh, you were unfavorable. Oh, okay. I apologize.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Allison Taylor. I'm here on behalf of Kaiser Permanente, and we support this bill for the reasons that I've said, for us and for the 465,000 members in the state that we serve.
Very good, thank you. Are there more favorable? Or are these?
Favorable.
Yep, okay. Anyone who's favorable? Uh-huh.
Hi, I'm Candace Richardson Dickens. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor and the owner of Color of Trauma and Healing Directory. I'm in favor of this because I know that I've had several clients who have, who face excruciating experiences alone, because trauma happens when there's disconnection. Trauma happens when people aren't connected. Addiction happens when there's disconnection and they don't feel connected to self or anyone else. So what this number has done is that it's given people a lifeline to reach out to talk about what's happening to them and what's happened to them. So for that reason alone, I've seen many of my clients, as well as many of my colleagues who are medical providers, nurses, therapists, use this service for themselves. Because there is shame in getting help as a clinician, as a medical provider, as a nurse. So what I've seen is that it's given people an opportunity to have a lifeline, not just the layman person, not just the clients, but it's also giving support to people who are within the medical field who need that support. So for that reason, I'm in support of this.
Good afternoon. Since the hour is late and clearly we're preaching to the choir, I'll keep my remarks as brief as possible. My name is Todd Ledbetter. I am a Maryland resident, taxpayer, homeowner, and volunteer with NAMI Prince George's, and I'm glad to see my Senator Rosa Pep in attendance. In 2005, I was diagnosed with bipolar depression. After battling depression for years, in January 2020, I woke up one night and decided I'd had enough. In the midst of an active attempt, what I believe to be a divine thought came to my mind. No matter what happens, you have to keep your son's father alive. I pulled out my phone and Googled the number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which at the time was 1-800-273-TALK. Today, those seeking help in crisis have the benefit of the 988 number, which makes life-saving resources more accessible. Emotional wellness, like physical wellness, as we all know, is everyone's issue. And by the way, I was eventually able to connect with resources that helped me, and today I'm living depression-free. I'm a witness that with the right support, healing is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in support?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Josh Howe on behalf of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI Maryland, here just urging a favorable report on the bill.
Thank you.
Mr.
Senator Jackson, you have a question?
Have to get into the favorable.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Dan Martin with the Mental Health Association of Maryland, here in strong support of Senate Bill 3. And just real quickly, the Maryland General Assembly established Maryland's crisis response system in law in 2002, and just over 20 years later, with the goal of really creating a comprehensive 24/7 system across the state that can serve Marylanders with mental health and substance use emergencies. And thanks to the support of this committee and the members of this committee and the General Assembly and the hard work of many folks across the state over the past few years, we're closer to that goal than ever. And 988 is a really, really critical piece of that. It's the access point to all of these services. And, this bill will ensure that those folks answering these calls for our friends and families and loved ones in crisis have what they need to do the job. And so thank you very much for your support, and urge a favorable report on SB 3.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in person here who is favorable? Okay, we have one person online who is favorable. Is this Henry Messer? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Henry Miser. I'm a high school senior at St. Mary's Riken High School in St. Mary's County. And while I'm not here to testify on behalf of the entire commission, I am here to testify as a student representative to the Governor's Commission on Suicide Prevention. Since 2021, I've served as a student representative representing the diverse perspective of over 900,000 public, private, and homeschooled students in the state. And today I'm here to testify in unequivocal favor for Senate Bill number 3. Senate Bill 3 would allow for increases and will help ensure sustainable funding so that every Marylander can be connected to the services which they desperately need in a timely manner. Every 2 years, the Commission lays out a comprehensive state suicide prevention plan, and as set forth in the 2022-24 plan, the Commission identified the strengthening and statewide integration of 988 as a top priority. So for these reasons and for those outlined in the written testimony, which I also submitted, I would urge this committee to produce a favorable report. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Senator Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to echo what you mentioned earlier about the need, and with our hospital association, I happen to represent a hospital, MedStar Southern Maryland, and we were very proud last year to cut the ribbon on a behavioral health center there, but we have much more work to do. I also, in my day work, in my regular work, I work for the Office of Homeland Security for Prince George's County, and part of our charge is the 911 center. And we have undertaken through the, with the assistance of the numbers board for the state, a diversion program for all of our call takers, 911 center, to make sure that when folks, 911 is in most people, folks said 988 is getting there. But for those who dial the 911 number, we don't have clinical psychologists that are on the phone or other clinicians. So the training that they have undergone and
that's up and running in Prince George's and maybe a few other counties, that diversion goes directly to 988. So it's a worthy cause, as we all know, and just wanted to make sure that some folks out there listening, to make sure that we are working on that, and in some of our jurisdictions, help is already there. So thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm sorry that I didn't recognize before that we have some people with a different opinion, so.
My name is
Welcome.
Svetlana Shargorodskaya. My close friend Christian Petillo was killed 2 years ago. I believe the first responders responding to an alleged suicide call by Christian's roommate contributed to Christian's death or directly led to it. Therefore, here we go. Currently, people call 988 expecting confidentiality and privacy. Some callers are surprised when cops break down the door, handcuff them, and haul them off to involuntary psychiatric hospitalization. 988 refers less than 2% of calls to 911. However, because of the huge call volume, that means hundreds of thousands of non-consensual interventions. Some researchers believe that this humiliating and disempowering experience causes trauma that actually increases the person's chance of committing suicide later on. What's the alternative? It's crisis lines such as Black Line, Trans Lifeline, and Samaritans, who have a policy of zero non-consensual intervention, never forwarding the call to 911. Fordham University suicidology professor Emily Krebs says, quote, "While this approach may indeed result in some callers' deaths, I believe it will allow many more people to call without fear and will ultimately save more lives while honoring people's autonomy," unquote. Some people are especially unsafe in an encounter with the authorities, being a trans person, queer person, person of color, undocumented immigrant, or disabled person. But no matter who you are, when you feel blue and want someone to talk to, you don't want to risk getting locked up. Journalist Rob Whippond reports that the government contractor administering 988, an organization called Vibrant, demands that its participating call centers covertly trace many calls. Vibrant's guidelines, revised recently on December 27, 2022, state that dispatching emergency services is always an option for its call center workers. Furthermore, Vibrant has made clear its desire to prevent all other crisis lines from receiving calls or related state funding, endangering the survival of any community-based crisis lines that are truly confidential. Instead of more funding for the coercive framework of 988, please allocate this money to crisis lines that respect the caller's privacy and ultimately help more people survive their emotional crisis. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you sharing your perspective. We have one other individual opposed online, Mr. Vince McAvoy.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, other committee members. I do say that I'm very troubled by your tacit acceptance of this bill, Chair. I want to say from a spiritual perspective that my belief is that, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. My belief is that suicide that is dying out of a state of grace can damage your soul irreparably. And we should take steps to prevent suicide. That's not what this bill is about. This bill is about a boondoggle of $12 million. I want to put this in perspective. I'm going to try and save you some money and also show you how to be effective. When I worked at child support, the entire budget, we had a call center, the entire budget for the entire program was $13 million. And we had a call center handling technical, legal situations. This situation, this package, 988 drawn, which has connectivity issues that we do want, although you were just warned about some that we don't, breaking down the door, because we think that there's a wellness issue. This is aimed at an agenda piece. When you look at the statistics regarding who is committing suicide, the rate of suicide is highest in middle-aged white men. Men died by suicide 3.88 times more than women. White males account for 70% of suicide deaths. We don't see any mention in the literature, all the literature that came under the Hogan administration, all the literature coming out of health to talk about that. We talk about these niche areas. We also talk about children. You lock down children, you expose them to every type of harmful practice, and then you ignore the society of parents through flawed family law. Yes, we're going to have suicides and depression. The state has caused some of this. Members, I urge you to start working on what has caused these suicides, not to give people a buddy over the phone. They need friends, they need family, they need society, their parents, to help them through this, not some rando on a phone line. I strongly urge an unfavorable. Someone really needs to look at the statistics and take an afternoon to do the analysis to say who is the target area. Our veterans, 69.68% white males, not even mentioned anywhere in this. This is an agenda piece. It's a boondoggle. Let's marshal our forces and rethink this bill. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, unless there's anyone else, that will conclude the testimony on that legislation, and we'll move on to Senate Bill 20. Senator Stallings. Thank you all.
As what's always been said, he saved the best for last. There we go.
Absolutely.
Senator John Ray Salling, presenting Senate Bill 20, tax-free period spring break. Everybody likes a break. So, dear Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members, for the record, I'm Senator John Ray Salling today. I am here to ask your support on this bill to establish 1 week of tax-free shopping in the spring that coincides with spring break in many of the school systems throughout the state. As we know, Delaware and other states, they have it all the time. They have no taxes on a lot of the things and materials, but we have another opportunity to help boost the economy, and this bill can do something like this. As we know, and it says in the fiscal note, a lot of times looking at the revenues and the effects, they can be off, as we know. But as we see in 2007, there was a special session that created 2 annual sell tax-free periods, one in February for Star Energy products, and another was in August, they had clothing and footwear. So I think it would be a great opportunity to help our businesses, our constituents, and our state, because we are feeling the financial pressures of raising inflation costs. So I respectfully ask for your favor report. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions? All right, that concludes our hearing for today. I don't think we have anything tomorrow. We have, oh, that's it? Yeah, we have and everybody, we have pro forma, so that's great. Take the time to figure it all out, all your bills. Be ready. All right.